Chapter 189. Immortal used his dragon will to dig the stone door. He turned around and said to Emma, "I need a drop of blood." Emma was hugging her silly son with tears flowing down her face. Hearing Immortal's words, she naturally knew that Immortal wanted her blood. She immediately nodded, took her son's hand and came to the stone door. Immortal's dragon will moved, and a small wound appeared on Emma's fingertip. A drop of blood dripped onto the stone door. The next moment, the blood seeped into the stone door. Then the stone door trembled slightly. Accompanied by the sound of machinery, the stone door slowly moved to the sides. A deep and dark passage appeared in front of them. Immortal's dragon will probed into the dark cave. However, there were many bends in this cave. No matter how strong his dragon will was, it was impossible for him to go around so many bends and probe inside. He gently stroked the blood slave on his shoulder. Dragon will ordered, "Go." The blood slave seemed to understand human nature and nodded. Then it flapped its wings and flew into the passage. Immortal used his dragon will to detect that there were a few vampires trying to escape more than 80 kilometers away. Although the bloody handprint just now destroyed most of the nearby vampires. But the vampires who were further away barely survived. But they were unlucky to be swept by Immortal's dragon will at this moment. Soon the bodies of these vampires were torn into pieces. Then they reorganized and finally formed a virus clone that looked exactly like Immortal. Immortal's dragon will moved. The virus clone ran towards the bloody handprint. A moment later, the virus clone arrived at the entrance and directly entered the passage. With Immortal's cautious personality, even if the blood slave had investigated clearly, he would still condense a virus clone and make another trip. Emma was slightly taken aback when she saw this person who looked exactly like Immortal. Could it be that this Asian man was also a twin? While the blood slave was investigating, Immortal directly signed in his mind. System Special Events Sign In. He was filled with anticipation. This time they had destroyed Castle Dracula and killed almost all the higher-ups of the vampires. He should be able to get something good from signing in. The system quickly responded. Sign in successful. Sign in event. Destroy the vampire's lair, kill Count Dracula, sign in reward. 1 drop of Dracula's blood, 1 Dracula's voyage diary vampire summon. Although Immortal did not really kill Dracula, Dracula was still alive. However, the system had already determined that he had killed Count Dracula by wiping out the entire nest of the Blood clan and cutting off Count Dracula's lineage. Immortal carefully examined the 3 rewards in his mind. Dracula's blood. Any blood breed that absorbs it will rapidly grow to the level of Count Dracula. It is completely under the command of the host. Immortal pondered for a moment. Dracula's blood was very useful to him at this stage. Dracula's voyage diary. The 3rd Count Dracula was passionate about ocean exploration. His diary recorded many secrets in the depths of the sea. Immortal's mind flickered as he took out the nautical diary. The diary looked very old and many of the corners of the book had been rolled up. Immortal casually flipped through a few pages. His heart couldn't help but jump when he flipped through it. On the last few pages of the diary there were 2 maps. Although the map was a little sloppy, it could still be seen clearly. Although Immortal wasn't very good at geography in his previous life, he couldn't tell where these 2 pictures were. But in the center of these 2 pictures, there was a picture of an animal. The drawing was very ugly, but it could still be recognized that these 2 pictures were of dragons. Immortal instantly thought, could there have been a dragon's lair at the bottom of the sea? Did the 3rd Count Dracula discover that lair? He should be able to find the answer in this nautical diary. However, he still had things to do at this time, so he would keep this diary for later study. Then he looked at the last reward. Vampire summon. Use Dracula's blood to summon blood creatures. The type, number and level of the summoned blood creatures are random. The summoned blood creatures will attack any creature with blood in their body, including the summoner. Use with caution. When Immortal saw this skill, he was secretly happy. Previously, when he summoned zombies and mutant beasts, he needed to have the corresponding zombies and mutant beasts within a certain range. If there wasn't, he couldn't summon them. Moreover, the zombies and mutant beasts summoned were weaker than Immortal. So those 2 skills seemed to be of little use. But this, vampire summon, didn't have this restriction. As long as he had Dracula's blood, he could summon blood creatures. And the type, number and level of the summoned blood creatures were random. This was interesting. As for the summoned creatures attacking him, Immortal wasn't worried. With so many trump cards, why would he be afraid of these blood creatures? If it really didn't work out, he could just go straight into the dragon's lair and do whatever he wanted outside. At the same time, Emosher also received a message from the skill description given by the system. Blood realm? What's that? Emosher asked in his mind. The system was silent. Well, it seemed that he would have to slowly explore it in the future. While Emosher was thinking, the blood slave had already investigated the entire lair in the tunnel. In the huge dragon's lair below, there was nothing except for 2 dried corpses and a dried horse corpse. Emosher secretly thought, it seemed that the legend was true. In the legend there was a horse wrangler who lost a horse. He went into the mountains and never came back. Another time a young man fell into a cave in the mountains. He slid down the cave into a huge dragon's lair. It seemed that these were their corpses. Emosher didn't immediately go in, waiting for the virus clone to go through the minefield. It wouldn't be too late to go in after he was 100% safe. At this time he turned around and looked at Emma. He saw that ever since Emma saw her son, Arthur, she had been hugging him as if she was afraid that she would lose her son if they separated. As for her son who became an idiot, he didn't respond to her calls. At first she naturally couldn't accept it. But she quickly thought it through. Instead of letting her son become Count Dracula and suck human blood, it would be better to let her become like this. She would peacefully stay by her side. She naturally knew that her son became like this because of Emosher. Along the way she had already seen this situation several times. Whether it was a vampire or a zombie, as long as Emosher looked at him, he would most likely become an idiot. But she didn't hate Emosher. She guessed that if this Eastern man didn't turn her son into this, then her son would most likely still want to kill them, and would still be that terrifying Count Dracula. So not only did she not hate Emosher, but she also thanked Emosher. She thanked Emosher for sparing her son's life in the end. There was a kind of person in the world who always thought of others with the greatest kindness. In fact, her thoughts weren't bad. It's just that Emosher didn't explain it to her. With Emosher's personality, he was too lazy to explain so much. What you think is your business, what I do is my business. Not convinced? Kill me if you have the ability. Chapter 190. Emosher wasn't worried about what Emma thought of him in her heart. But he suddenly remembered that Emma was a level 10 psychokinesis. If he gave her that drop of Dracula's blood, she would grow into the next Count Dracula. With Count Dracula's strength and level 10 psychokinesis, she would be the strongest existence on Earth apart from himself. With such a subordinate he would save a lot of trouble. Thinking of this, he turned to Emma and said, I have a way to let you become as strong as other blood breeds without sucking human blood, and live a normal life like them. Are you willing to try it? Hearing Emosher's words, Emma looked at her son. After a moment, she nodded heavily. Yes. Now that she was a blood breed, she definitely couldn't stay in the human base. And because she insisted on not sucking human blood, her body was extremely weak now. She and her son would not be able to survive in the wilderness where infected creatures ran rampant. Now that there was a chance to become stronger without sucking human blood, she naturally had to seize it. Hearing this, Emosher took out a finger-sized white glass bottle with a thought. There was a drop of blood-red liquid in the bottle. Emosher said, Give me your hand. Emma hesitated for a moment, then extended her right hand. Emosher opened the bottle cap and poured the drop of blood into her palm. The drop of blood seemed to be alive as it rolled around in her palm a few times. Finally, it merged into her palm. At the same time, Emosher's dragon's will probed her body. After the drop of blood entered Emma's body, it quickly infected all the cells in her body as if it was contagious. After her cells were infected by the virus in the drop of blood, they rapidly mutated. Generally speaking, there were 2 types of mutations. One was getting worse and worse. The other was becoming stronger and stronger. Emma was obviously the latter. Her cells were getting stronger and stronger. The toughness of her blood vessels was also getting stronger and stronger. In a short 5 minutes, she completed the mutation. At this moment, her physical strength, speed, and other aspects were exactly the same as the previous counts of Dracula. They were dozens of times stronger than ordinary level 10 blood breeds. Coupled with her level 10 telekinesis, she was probably 100 times stronger than the average level 10 mutated blood breeds. Such strength was enough to make him the strongest existence among all the previous counts of Dracula. At the same time, when she looked at Emosher, her gaze was filled with absolute reverence. It was the kind of reverence that was 100% obedient to Emosher. At the same time, her desire for human blood was greatly reduced. When Emosher had plundered her son Arthur's memories, he had already reached the level of Count Dracula. There was no need for him to suck human blood. The blood of other animals can also be substituted. It was just that to them human blood was more delicious than the blood of other animals. Emosher took out another bottle of recovery medicine and threw it to her. Give it to him. This time, Emma didn't hesitate and fed her son the medicine. A few minutes later, a miracle happened. The bloody holes on his son's chest and face were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just 5 minutes his body had completely recovered. Seeing this, Emma's eyes were filled with tears. She repeatedly said to Emosher, thank you, master, thank you, master." Emosher shook his head. He ordered her, "Spend some time with your son today. From tomorrow onwards, you will conquer the remaining 8 blood breeds families. Then bring these families to destroy all the mother nests in the world and eliminate all the zombies." Emma respectfully lowered her head and said, "Yes, master." She didn't know why she would obey such an order. It was as if she had done it for no reason. And she felt that it was only right to obey Emosher's orders. At this time, Emosher's virus clone had finished exploring the inside. There didn't seem to be any danger inside. Emosher then slowly walked inside. Emma took the initiative to stay outside. She helped Emosher keep watch. She hugged her son and watched as Emosher's figure gradually disappeared into the dark and deep passage. Her heart was filled with gratitude. She muttered, "Son, we have to be grateful to Master for the rest of our lives." If it weren't for Emosher, she would still be in the Manhattan base, tortured by the desire for blood every day. If it weren't for Emosher, she probably wouldn't be able to see her son again in this lifetime. Even if she did see her son, he would only be a bloodthirsty demon. But now, Emosher not only rescued her from the Manhattan base, but also allowed her to see her son. He also allowed her strength to greatly increase in a short period of time. He gave her and her son the ability to survive in the wilderness. And he also restored her son's body. She had never been willing to judge others with malice in her life. Moreover, Emosher had helped her and her son so much. She was naturally only grateful to Emosher. As for being deprived of part of her freedom, she had never thought about it. In her opinion, in order to repay Emosher's kindness, she should do anything for Emosher. At this time, Emosher had already followed the passage and turned many times. Finally he came to a huge and empty cave. In a corner of the cave, there were 2 mummified corpses and a mummified horse corpse. Other than that, there was nothing else. This should be the former draconic ruins. However, there were no dragon skeletons in this draconic ruins, nor were there any claw marks left by a giant dragon. Emosher's dragons will thoroughly check this place 3 times. Only then did he say, "System, sign in." The system's voice suddenly sounded frowny face, "Sign in successful. Sign in location, draconic ruins, sign in reward. 1 demon suppressing orb, sign in reward. 2 dragon scale, sign in reward. 3 dragon's will." Emosher looked through these 3 rewards carefully. He had an understanding in his heart. Among them, the one that excited him the most was the dragon's will. Originally, the improvement of dragon's will was extremely difficult. Especially after advancing to level 3 this time, he could clearly feel that his dragon's will was much stronger than before. Originally, with his dragon's will that had just advanced to level 3, he didn't know how long it would take for it to level up again. But this time, a wisp of dragon's will had increased his total dragon's will by a large margin on the basis of level 3. He estimated that with 2 more wisps of dragon's will, his dragon's will would be able to level up again. As for the dragon scale, the effect was exactly the same as the previous one. Emosher didn't know why the system rewarded him with so many dragon scales. The demon suppressing orb was a bead the size of a walnut. It was nurtured in the body of a giant dragon and had a righteous aura. A single bead could suppress 10,000 demons. However, this demon suppressing orb was a one-time consumable. If he wanted to obtain it again after using it up, he could only use his evolution points to designate a reward to sign in. Just as Emosher was secretly rejoicing in his heart, suddenly on the stone wall next to him, the sound of a mechanism could be heard. Ka. A stone door had actually appeared on the seemingly intact stone wall. Then ka. One after another, the sound of a mechanism could be heard. On the stone wall, stone doors appeared one after another. The stone doors weren't big, only the size of a room's door. From each stone door a figure walked out. Chapter 191. 5 figures walked out of the 5 stone doors. The 5 figures were pale and their eyes were bloodshot. In the dark tunnel, Emosher could not see their faces clearly even with his eyesight. In this dark and lonely environment, the 5 figures gave off a strong sense of oppression just by standing there. Emosher scanned them with his blood dragon's eye, and their abilities were immediately displayed. Species, blood breed, level 10 supermutated, the 5 of them were all level 10 supermutated. At this moment, one of the black figures spoke slowly. "Lowly human, how dare you trespass into the sacred land of the blood breed? This is unforgivable." Another black figure spoke slowly, and his voice sounded like metal plates rubbing against each other. "What a powerful human. I'm at the critical stage of my breakthrough. Sucking his blood will definitely be beneficial to my breakthrough." The other three black figures spoke one after another. "You must have killed many members of the blood breed to be able to make it here. Since that's the case, stay here. This is the territory of the blood breed. Lowly human, no matter how powerful you are, you won't be able to escape death today." As they spoke, their black cloaks fluttered even though there was no wind. The five of them seemed to have grown much taller in an extremely short period of time. Soon, the five of them had filled up 1/5 of the entire cave. Moreover, they were still expanding. Immortal shook his head slowly. From Arthur's memories, he already knew that there were people in this cave. After the successive Counts Dracula left their positions, they had all hidden in this so-called sacred land of the blood breed and trained hard in order to break through their limits and reach the next realm. This was because in the ancient legends, their lifespan would only increase when they broke through to the next realm. Even if each generation was 100 years old, the oldest of the 5 old fellows was an old monster who had lived for more than 500 years. Every single one of them was stronger than Arthur from before. Each of them even had their own unique skills. However, after Immortal checked their abilities, he directly ignored them. No matter how strong the 5 of them were, they were still too weak compared to him. And this time he didn't even bother to lift a finger. The dragon thought stirred and directly took out that demon-suppressing orb. This demon-suppressing orb was only the size of a walnut and looked like a glass ball. However, there seemed to be something indescribable contained within this glass ball. When he took out the demon-suppressing orb, he did not need to activate it with dragon will, nor did he need to activate it with energy. It just sat there quietly in the palm of his hand. The 5 huge shadows in the surroundings immediately let out heart-wrenching screams. At the same time, the black shadow kept twisting and struggling. It was shrinking rapidly. In the end, the 5 shadows turned into 5 pools of blood. At the same time, the things inside the demon-suppressing orb were exhausted and turned into a pile of powder. Immortal used his draconic will to carefully sense the process of the demon-suppressing orb killing the 5 experts. There was no earth-shattering momentum, nor was there any glaring light. Just like that, the 5 experts were killed. It was just this simple and unadorned. From a microscopic point of view, this demon-suppressing orb actually emitted a kind of microwave that couldn't be seen or felt by the naked eye. When this microwave came into contact with the 5 experts, it directly destroyed the virus chromosomes in their bodies and caused a photochemical reaction, killing the virus in their bodies. The principle was similar to ultraviolet disinfection. However, the microwave emitted by this demon-suppressing orb was many times stronger than ultraviolet light. It could easily kill the virus in the 5 experts' bodies. The 5 blood breed experts were almost all infected with the blood breed virus. Now that the virus in their bodies had been killed, they naturally couldn't live. Therefore, from this perspective, the stronger the infected creature the demon-suppressing orb encountered, the better the effect. Moreover, the demon-suppressing orb ignored levels. Even if an enemy who was thousands of times stronger than Immortal stood in front of him, as long as he was infected, he could still silently kill him. Most importantly, such a domineering demon-suppressing orb had no restrictions. With this orb in hand, the world was mine. Although Immortal had obtained a few items or skills that ignored levels before, they were all used for defense or had very strong restrictions. They either required energy or had a short usage time. Or the stronger the opponent, the worse the effect. Only this demon-suppressing orb was the only one without any restrictions. It truly ignored levels. At this moment, after killing the 5 guys, Immortal looked at his evolution points again. He happily found that his evolution points had exceeded 10 billion. At the same time, a system notification appeared in his mind. Frowny face, evolution points have exceeded 10 billion. You can upgrade. Do you wish to upgrade now? Immortal replied in his mind, upgrade now. This upgrade will take 12 hours. You cannot sign in during the upgrade. Immortal was already familiar with this. He was overjoyed. This trip to Castle Dracula was definitely a rewarding one. Dragon thoughts leveled up, obtained a powerful subordinate, obtained a lot of rewards, and now the system was about to upgrade. Turning around and leaving the dragon's nest, Immortal was in a good mood. His dragon thoughts moved. In the next moment, boom 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 boom, a total of 100 meteorites smashed into the mountain behind him. Flames soared into the sky, smoke and dust filled the air. Amidst the deafening explosion, the undulating mountain range within a radius of tens of kilometers collapsed with a loud rumble. After a long time, when the flames disappeared, the smoke and dust dispersed. Looking at the mountain again, there was no sign of the mountain. Within a radius of tens of kilometers, it had been razed to the ground. This was the terrifying destructive power of Immortal's dragon thoughts after leveling up to level 3. Arthur was so scared that he curled up in his mother's arms, his body trembling. Emma hugged her son tightly. Looking at the ruins of the mountain, the shock in her heart was more intense than ever before. Although after Immortal's appearance she was already shocked to the point of numbness. But this time she was still shocked to the point of speechlessness. A person's psychic power could reach such a terrifying level? This was too strong. She had always thought that her master should be a psychic master. And it was very likely that he was a top level 10 psychic master. But now it seemed that she still underestimated her master's strength. This was probably far beyond the realm of a level 10 psychic master. Her level 10 psychokinesis was already considered an absolute powerhouse. But compared to her master, it was like a firefly compared to the sun. She was nothing at all. Mosher took one last look at Emma and said, "Let's start working tomorrow." After saying that, his figure moved. His figure disappeared instantly. Only a 100-meter-tall giant dragon shadow was left in place. Emma looked at the huge dragon projection and came to a realization. Her master's strength was heaven-defying, and all kinds of methods were beyond her understanding. It seemed that as long as she followed her master in the future, her silly son might recover one day. Chapter 192. The world was very big. There were a lot of zombies. More than 7 billion zombies. In addition to birds, there were 200 to 400 billion. There were estimated to be 1 trillion mammals. With so many infected creatures for Immortal, it was like a huge treasure trove of evolution points. However, with so many infected creatures, if Immortal wanted to kill them all by himself, he would probably be exhausted to death. Therefore, he had already begun to train his subordinates. Let these subordinates kill those infected creatures. According to the system's judgment, the evolution points obtained by his subordinates from killing infected creatures would also be counted on his head. Therefore, Immortal only needed to train a large number of subordinates. Let them kill infected creatures. Then he could peacefully stay in the base. Wouldn't it be wonderful to watch the evolution points enter his account every day? This Emma was the first subordinate he had recruited. At around 10 o'clock that night, a system prompt appeared in his mind: frowny face system upgrade successful. Upgrade reward: 1. A herd of cattle, 10. Upgrade reward: 2. A herd of goats, 10. Upgrade reward: 3. A herd of birds, 100 random type. Upgrade reward: 4. A herd of animals, 100 random type. Immortal looked at these rewards. Not only was he not unhappy, but he was also a little excited. He had thought many times before. Except for a small number of animals in the base, all the other animals in the world were infected. After those infected animals were cleaned up, what would happen to the entire ecological chain? Without animals, the ecological chain would not be able to function. The humans on Earth would still only end up being destroyed. And now, these rewards from the system's upgrade were absolutely timely. With these animals, when he signed in other animals in the future, he could build a miniature ecosystem around the C1 base. When the number of these animals slowly increased, this ecosystem could expand to the entire wuxia and even the whole world. Moreover, when he carefully looked at these rewards, he was delighted to find that these animals obtained from the system were absolutely immune to harmful viruses. This was amazing. Even if other infected creatures bit these animals, they would definitely not be infected. Then, the system's voice continued: frowny face upgrade content. The number of sign-in rewards has increased. A maximum of 10,000 of the same items can be obtained each time. This time there was only one upgrade content. But just this one item made Immortal excited. Every time he signed in, he would receive 10,000 of the same items. With the addition of the Dragon Palace, he could obtain 20,000 pieces. In that case, wouldn't he be able to level up again in just a few days? Furthermore, after leveling up, it would only take a month at most before it could level up again. In other words, it would take him 40 days to become a level 10 great hunter. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. Naturally, the more rewards there were, the more evolution points he would need. If he chose 10,000 rewards each time, he would need 11 million evolution points. However, this was not a problem for the current Immortal. He already had more than 10 billion evolution points. Now that he had so many subordinates helping him earn evolution points, he could earn around 10 million evolution points every day. Would he be afraid of not having enough evolution points? Immortal did not return to base C1 immediately. Since they were out, they might as well take a look at the other bases. Therefore, in the next few days he went to every base in the world. With his dragon's will, he did not even need to enter the base. As long as he was tens of kilometers away from the base, he could activate psychokinesis. In every base in the world he left 10 psychokinesis. With his level 3 dragon's will, he could activate psychokinesis 10 times a day. Each time he could activate 10 psychokinesis. Moreover, he could directly increase their telekinesis to level 10. Apart from wuxia, there were only 30 bases left in the world. He spent 3 days and left 300 level 10 psychokinesis. He ordered them to go to every corner of the world to kill zombies and infected creatures. In that way, the Blood Breeds had Emma as their commander. The zombies were killed by these 300 level 10 psychokinesis. Immortal could return to base C1 and peacefully enjoy his life. As for the dragon's nest in the sea that was recorded on the map in Dracula's voyage diary, Immortal planned to wait until his sea dragon avatar was at least level 10 super mutated before exploring. 3 days later, Immortal finally returned to wuxia. He once again created 10 virus doppelgangers and had them clean up all the infected creatures in wuxia except for Emperor Qin's mausoleum. With Immortal's current strength, the virus doppelganger he created was already a level 4 great hunter and a level 1 psychic master. He was definitely one of the top existences on Earth. Of course, he also wanted to create a virus doppelganger with Dragon's Will. However, not everyone could withstand Dragon's Will. He estimated that when he reached level 5 Long Yen Shi, the virus doppelganger he created should be able to withstand Dragon's Will. Immortal and Happy had not seen each other for 5 days. Happy was naturally very happy to see Immortal return. When Immortal saw that Happy was happy, he was naturally very happy too. For the next 3 days, Immortal didn't ask anything, nor did he care about anything. He just drank tea, chatted, and watered the flowers with Happy. It was very peaceful. As for the work at the corpse farm, Happy was still conscientious. The leaders of the corpse farm, including the base's chief, had persuaded her many times to stop. After all, she was Immortal's girlfriend. How could they let her do this kind of work? However, Happy did not agree. She felt that it was the apocalypse now and the base could not afford to keep idle people. She could not be the only idle person. Besides, she did not know any other skills. She was very familiar with the work of raising corpses. Most importantly, the first time she met Brother Imo was at the corpse farm. She still remembered how Brother Imo patiently taught her how to raise corpses. Therefore, every time she raised corpses, her heart would always be filled with happiness. After dinner, Immortal and Happy took a walk along the tree-lined path. Happy held Immortal's arm. When they met other people along the way, although she was a little shy, her eyes were filled with happiness. Immortal could not help but tease her. "Don't call it Happy. Call it Happy." Happy nodded and gestured with her hands. "Whatever Brother Imo says." Immortal had nothing to do, so he used the blood dragon's eye to look at Happy. He found that her level was still a question mark. It seemed that the time for the last question mark to be unlocked was longer than the previous 2. 3 days later, Immortal and Happy went to the base chief's office while taking a walk. They understood the current situation of the base. In the base, the first level 7 hunter had already appeared. The number of people above the level of corpse hunter had reached more than 33,000. There were also more than 500 people in psychokinesis. Immortal used another day to activate 100 level 10 psychokinesis. In this way, as long as he stayed in the base for a while, base C1 would become the strongest base in the world. There was no other. The strength of the base has increased, and the infected creatures outside have also been cleaned up. Immortal then placed the animals he obtained from signing in around the base. He reminded the base chief not to hunt these animals first. They could only be hunted after the ecosphere around the base was almost formed. The people in the base were naturally very surprised that Immortal could get so many uninfected animals. But that was all. Immortal had displayed too many abilities. They were already shocked to the point of numbness. It was not strange for anything to happen to Immortal. It was not until all of this was done that Immortal's consciousness once again entered the sea dragon clone's body. Chapter 193. Immortal finished arranging everything. That night, his consciousness finally entered the body of the sea dragon doppelganger again. He was now the most powerful being in the world. But he felt that it wasn't enough. He always vaguely felt that there was some kind of restriction on Earth. The limit of infected creatures was level 10 super mutant. And the limit of humans was level 10 great hunters. He would definitely encounter such a restriction when he became a level 10 great hunter in the future. If this restriction couldn't be broken in a short time, it would take him 7 years to break through, just like the level 10 hunters at the beginning. That was really too long. And the sea dragon clone could at most be one level higher than him. So it was very necessary for him to quickly raise the level of the sea dragon clone. At this moment, with a thought, the strength of the sea dragon clone appeared in his mind. Species, sea dragon, level 5 strong mutant, ability, evolution by devouring, dragon telekinesis attack. He hadn't seen this guy for 8 days, but this guy had only leveled up once. Emo sure shook his head. It was a bit slow. It seemed that he had to level up as soon as possible, then leave the Yellow River Basin and go to the sea. After all, there were endless possibilities in the sea. And in the sea, there was a dragon ruins waiting for him to explore. Emo sure scanned with his dragon telekinesis and detected that on the shore 5 kilometers downstream, there was a strong mutant tiger more than 5 meters long squatting at the entrance of a cave on the shore, ambushing a mutant wolf. Emo sure immediately swam downstream. With the speed of the sea dragon clone, he could now swim 5 meters per second. Although this speed wasn't as fast as a human running at full speed, don't forget that this was in the water. And with the speed of the river, he could swim 7 or 8 meters per second downstream. Soon, Emo sure controlled the sea dragon clone and came to the shore. Probing with his dragon telekinesis, he could easily detect that the strong mutant tiger seemed to be napping. He opened the blood dragon's eye and checked its level. Species, mutant tiger, level 6 strong mutant. Emo sure quietly dived out of the river. Then he swam diagonally to the surface of the water. At a certain moment, splash! With a huge splash, the 50-meter-long sea dragon clone instantly rushed out of the water. The mutant tiger suddenly turned its head. He subconsciously wanted to escape from the shore. However, at this moment, Emo sure's dragon will spread out. Dragon will attack. Although the sea dragon clone's dragon psyche attack wasn't as ferocious and domineering as Emo sure's level 3 dragon psyche, it still stunned the ferocious tiger. While he was distracted, the sea dragon's clone bit down. Crack. It actually bit off that huge tiger head in one bite. Then its body kept rolling and swaying, dragging the mutated tiger's body into the water. After eating heartily, a crackling sound quickly came from his body. His body length was rapidly increasing. Finally, it stopped at 16 meters. Species, Mosasaurus, level 6 strong mutation ability, evolution by devouring, dragon psychic attack. Emo sure's moves were indeed extraordinary. In just half an hour, the sea dragon clone had leveled up. In fact, with the strength of the sea dragon clone and the dragon will attack, it was not difficult to deal with some strong mutant beasts below level 10. However, after the sea dragon lost Emo sure's control, its self-awareness wasn't human after all. Even with a powerful ability like the dragon psychic attack, it was difficult to exert its full power. It wouldn't turn around and run away if it encountered something 1 or 2 levels higher than it. However, it would be very difficult to kill it. That was why it had only leveled up once after Emo sure left for so many days. At this moment, Emo sure was already extremely proficient in using the dragon will. As long as it was a strong mutant beast below level 10, he could easily kill it. That night, Emo sure controlled the sea dragon clone and killed 3 strong mutant beasts in a row. The sea dragon clone's level was directly raised to level 8. It wasn't until dawn that Emo sure's consciousness returned to his body. Although the sea dragon clone had leveled up twice in a row, it was still very tiring for him. And it had only leveled up twice, so he was still a little dissatisfied. At this rate, it was still unknown whether he could reach level 10 tonight. No, he couldn't go on like this. At this rate, when would he be able to reach a level higher than himself? He had to think of a way. That night after he had rested, Emo sure didn't directly transfer his consciousness into the sea dragon clone. Instead, he set off and ran in the direction of the Yellow River. When he arrived near the Yellow River, the blood dragon wings grew out of his back. The wings flapped slightly, and he flew downstream from above the Yellow River. At the same time, the dragon psychic attack swept over and took in all the mutant creatures in the Yellow River. Soon he discovered several strong mutant beasts between level 8 and level 10. Emo sure's dragon psychic attack moved, intending to knock out a level 8 mutant beast. However, the dragon psychic attack had just leveled up to level 3, so he wasn't very familiar with the strength of the dragon psychic attack. He had accidentally killed the level 8 mutant beast with the shockwave. Emo sure was a little embarrassed. He could only reduce his strength and continue to shock the other strong mutant beasts with the dragon psychic attack. All the strong mutant beasts were knocked out. Then he led them with the dragon psychic attack and quickly swam toward the sea dragon clone. More than 2 hours later, all the strong mutant beasts between level 8 and level 10 were delivered to the sea dragon clone. and each of the strong mutant beasts only fainted, none of them died. At this time, without Immosure's control, the sea dragon clone was still hissing excitedly. It pounced on these strong mutant beasts. Only half an hour later, it had devoured more than a dozen level 8 mutant beasts and a level 9 mutant beast, and finally advanced to level 9. Immosure nodded slightly. At the same time, he secretly cursed himself for not realizing this before. The system only said that if the sea dragon clone wanted to advance, it had to eat live mutant beasts. There was no restriction on whether the sea dragon clone caught the mutant beasts itself. He had gone into a dead end at that time. Now he could easily control these strong mutant beasts with his main body and let the sea dragon clone devour them. Wouldn't this save a lot of trouble and increase his strength much faster? Soon after the sea dragon clone devoured these mutant beasts, its strength had increased to level 10. As long as it advanced by one more level, it would be promoted to a super mutant beast. Some people would say that this way it would level up too quickly. Without combat experience, its combat strength would still be trash, and it would be like pulling up seedlings to help them grow. Immosure believed that if he could crush his opponent with his level, why would he need combat experience? It was like an adult fighting with a 3-year-old child. With a slap, the child would cry home to his mother. Why would he need combat experience? So most of the time, level suppression was the way to go. Chapter 194. Immosure felt gratified to see the sea dragon clone reach level 10. It was like seeing his son finally enter the 6th grade. However, just the 6th grade wasn't enough. There were still middle school, high school, and college, so he had to continue to level up. Immosure continued to search the Yellow River Basin. In the end, he found the only dozen or so level 1 mutated beasts in the Yellow River Basin. It was still the dragon consciousness that knocked them out and left them for the sea dragon clone to devour. The sea dragon clone's first choice was a mutant crocodile. This mutant crocodile was much bigger than the ones Immosure had encountered in the dam. It was more than 20 meters long and 2 to 3 meters tall. Its body was covered with a thick layer of scales that reflected a metallic luster. It had a huge mouth more than 5 meters long, and the sharp teeth inside were uneven, shining with a cold light. A timid person would probably pee their pants just by looking at it. Immosure originally thought that if the sea dragon's teeth couldn't break through the mutant crocodile's defense, he would have to help it. It was really troublesome. But he didn't expect the sea dragon to be so smart. It used 2 barbed fins to break open the mutant crocodile's long palate and ate directly from its mouth. A moment later, the mutant crocodile was eaten until only an empty shell was left. At the same time, the dull sound of bones growing came from its body. Crack, crack, crack. Its body was growing rapidly. Hard horny scales also began to grow on the surface of its body. They looked exactly the same as the crocodile's scales. Its fins became thicker and thicker, and it already looked like a crocodile. Its mouth also became longer, closer to the appearance of a crocodile's long palate. It became more conducive to biting. A moment later, its body had reached 20 meters in length. 4 branches grew on its body. At first glance, it looked like a mutant crocodile. But if one looked carefully, they would find that its face was even more ferocious than a crocodile. On the top of its head, there were hard barbs the length of a finger. Its tail was about 7 or 8 meters long. And this tail was very strange, it was actually triangular. Hard scales grew on each of its horns, making it look like a 3-edged blade. From the neck to the tip of the tail, there was a serrated blade. On the whole, it looked more aggressive and had a stronger defense. At a certain moment, a thought flashed through Immosure's mind. Didn't this guy look a bit like an earth dragon? In Western legends, dragons were divided into many types. Among them, according to how they traveled, there were flying dragons and earth dragons. The earth dragon's strength and status were much lower than the flying dragons. Some people even thought that the earth dragon could only be considered a subdragon species and not a true dragon. However, Immosure felt that no matter how low the earth dragon's status was, it was still related to the word dragon. If there really was an earth dragon, Immosure felt that it should be this fellow. He used the blood dragon's eye to look again. Species, sea dragon, level 1 super mutated, ability, evolution by devouring, dragon psychic attack, death roll. It had finally reached super mutated dragon. Using this method to devour to evolve dragons, devour evolution. In the past, he didn't know what he was thinking, but he didn't think of this point. Next, it was time to head for the sea. Immosure waited for the sea dragon doppelganger to finish devouring the remaining mutant beasts before controlling it to swim towards the estuary of the Yellow River. Its speed was now 20 meters per second. Even so, it still took them more than 3 hours to reach the estuary of the Yellow Sea. At this time, Immortal had already caught hundreds of super mutated beasts below level 3. After knocking out these super mutated beasts, he stored them in his personal reservoir. Then he let the sea dragon clone enter the personal reservoir and eat. This was safe and wouldn't be discovered by other creatures. Immortal's consciousness returned to his body and he sighed. This was more tiring than raising a son. But it was worth it. When it grew up, it could go treasure hunting in the sea. And in the future, its strength could surpass his by a large realm. At that time it would be his biggest trump card. While the sea dragon clone was eating in the personal reservoir, Immortal returned to base C1 under the moonlight. The next morning, after breakfast, Immortal's consciousness returned to the sea dragon clone. At this time, the sea dragon clone was 23 meters long. Overall, it was even more mighty and domineering. It was already a level 3 mutant beast. It was definitely the first time in the world that a level 1 super mutated beast had risen 2 levels in one night. Even Immortal took a few months to advance from a level 1 great hunter to a level 3 great hunter. Looking at the personal reservoir, it was empty except for the sea dragon clone. There were no other mutant beasts. Immortal immediately ordered a virus clone to go to the Yellow Sea and capture dozens of level 4 and level 5 super mutated beasts to store in the personal reservoir. Now that he had familiarized himself with the level 3 dragon telepathy for the past few days, the virus clones he could condense were even stronger. Most of them were level 4 great hunters and level 3 psychic masters. With their strength, let alone level 4 and level 5 super mutated beasts, even level 6 and level 7 super mutated beasts wouldn't be a problem. So Immortal could relax for a few more days. But Immortal didn't know that he wouldn't be able to relax for a few days. Antarctica, McMurdo Dry Valley, also known as Death Valley. When many people thought of Antarctica, the first thing that came to mind was a world of ice and snow. But McMurdo Dry Valley didn't have a trace of ice and snow. Because in this valley the cold wind whistled all year round. The cold wind blew at a speed of more than 300 kilometers per hour, taking away all the moisture in the air. So it hadn't rained or snowed here for more than 2 million years. The entire valley was barren. There were only large and small stones. And between these stones, there were hundreds and thousands of sea beast skeletons. There were penguin skeletons, seal skeletons. So this place was called Death Valley. There were many strange things in the valley. Among them, there were two that were the most terrifying. First, this place was more than 50 kilometers away from the nearest coastline. Why would seals and other marine animals travel such a long distance and die here in groups? Second, and also the most terrifying thing. When you walked along the valley full of animal skeletons to the end, you would find a glacier. And on top of the snow-white glacier, there was a blood-red waterfall. This blood-red waterfall flowed down the glacier, all the way to the dry valley, and then it would dry up. Here, every once in a while, blood-red liquid would spurt out from the glacier. When it flowed into the dry valley, it would disappear. It was said that many exploratory teams had mysteriously disappeared after coming here. But at this time in the fierce wind, above the blood-red waterfall, two light blue lights slowly appeared. At first, it was just two balls of light the size of wash basins. A moment later, these two balls of light began to slowly condense into human silhouettes. Another 5 minutes later, the light completely condensed into two humans. Chapter 195. Death Valley above the blood-colored waterfall. Suddenly, two light blue orbs appeared. Gradually, the pale blue ball of light condensed into two humans. One of them was a bald middle-aged man, while the other was a young man with shoulder-length hair. The long-haired young man looked at his body from head to toe and said curiously, "Isn't this teleportation technology too awesome?" The bald middle-aged man smiled and explained, "Breaking down a human body into molecular form and teleporting it to a planet 30 light-years away. Then, reassembling the molecules and forming a human form again. This is called disassembling and reassembling teleportation." The long-haired young man joked, "You can reassemble after disassembling? Isn't this the same as resurrecting us after killing us once? Isn't it too awesome to resurrect the dead?" The bald middle-aged man explained patiently, "Young master, you must be joking. The technology of resurrecting the dead hasn't been developed yet. This disassembling and reassembling technology is just an improved version of the ancient micro-wormhole teleportation technology." The long-haired young man waved his hand and looked a little impatient. I know. There are very few large wormholes in space, but micro-wormholes that are invisible to the naked eye are everywhere. The micro-wormhole technology is a teleportation technology that breaks down an object into molecular form and transmits it to a designated coordinate through the micro-wormhole before reassembling the molecules. The long-haired young man recited it like a high school student reciting history and politics. The bald middle-aged man smiled and said, "Young master is indeed a top student." The long-haired young man waved his hand and looked even more impatient. "All right, let's go." As he said that, he snapped his fingers. The next moment, the shoes on his feet made a few clicks and buckles popped out. The two pairs of shoes joined together and continued to extend. Finally, they combined into something that looked like a skateboard. However, this skateboard didn't have wheels. Instead, two small wings popped out from both sides. Jet holes appeared under the shoes and at the back. The jet holes sprayed out a stream of light blue particles. Under the strong repulsive force, the young man quickly levitated. His eyes were immediately filled with excitement. He shouted loudly, "Woo woo, first hunting ground, your hunters have arrived." The bald middle-aged man behind him quickly reminded him loudly, "Young master, you came to the first hunting ground to become a level 10 great hunter. Therefore, try not to use these high-tech methods. You must maximize the potential of your body." Hearing this, the young man shook his head helplessly. "Oh well, it's been a long time since I walked." As he spoke, he snapped his fingers again. The hoverboard under his feet landed on the ground, and with a few clicks, it returned to the shape of a shoe. "Let's go." The youth leaped into the air. In the blink of an eye, he had traveled 340 meters. The bald middle-aged man smiled, lifted his feet, and followed him. It was obvious that he had a much easier time crossing the 340 meters than the young man. At the same time, he continued to exhort, "Young master, you're here for the sake of breaking through to become a level 10 great hunter. If it's not too dangerous, I won't help you." The long-haired young man shook his head impatiently. I know. According to the information I have, the strongest creature in the first hunting ground is only a level 10 mutated creature. As for the inferior humans in the first hunting ground, not a single great hunter or psychic master had appeared. What danger could there be? To put it bluntly, we are the most powerful beings here. My mother is too much. She actually let a level 5 psychic master like you protect me. How worried is she about me? The bald middle-aged man could only listen with an awkward smile. 2 days later, the sea dragon clone's strength had risen to a level 6 mutated beast. In another 2 days, when it rose to a level 8 mutated beast, Immortal planned to personally control the sea dragon clone and enter the sea to crush a group of mutated sea beasts. However, on this day he suddenly had a thought. He had left a level 10 psychokinesis in the Chile base, and it was suddenly killed. Immortal didn't pay much attention to it at first. After all, he had left a few hundred level 10 psychokinesis behind. The loss of 1 or 2 didn't affect him at all. He really couldn't be bothered to cross half the world for a level 10 psychokinesis. However, in the following day he lost contact with 3 level 10 psychokinesis. Immortal had to take this seriously. He ordered the remaining 7 psychokinesis in the Chile base to gather together. At the same time, they were to immediately report if they discovered anything. However, in the next 2 hours, 2 level 10 psychokinesis were killed. Immortal slightly furrowed his brows. Although level 10 psychokinesis wasn't the strongest on Earth, it had no problem dealing with mutated creatures below level 5. Now that level 10 psychokinesis were dying one after another, there must be a creature far stronger than level 5 behind this. A level 10 psychokinesis reported to Immortal from a distance, "Master, according to the information we have, it seems that something is hunting us." Another level 10 psychic reported, "That's right. When we went outside the base in the past 2 days, we found that all the mutated creatures below level 5 around the base were basically killed. And we just got in touch with another base nearby. In their base, a few level 10 hunters were also killed. We guessed that this powerful murderer must be hunting all the powerful creatures regardless of species." Hearing this, Immortal thought for a moment in his heart. He gave an order to Emma in his mind, "Emma, you're close to the Chile base. Go and see what's going on." Emma's voice quickly sounded in Immortal's mind, "Yes, master." After doing this, Immortal lay back on the recliner under the grape trellis in the yard. Looking up at the night sky, he yawned and closed his eyes. This was the benefit of having a powerful subordinate. Some problems could be solved by this subordinate. He didn't have to do everything himself. The next morning, after Immortal woke up, he checked the level of the sea dragon clone. The sea dragon clone was now a level 7 mutated beast. And Immortal's virus clones could only catch a large number of level 7 mutated beasts to feed it. It would probably become a level 8 mutated beast by tomorrow morning. And Immortal was ready. When it became a level 8 mutated beast, he would control it to explore the sea and search for treasures. Especially the dragon ruins at the bottom of the sea, Emma sure couldn't forget about it. At the same time near the chilly base, a woman with an enchanting figure, a delicate face and blonde hair and red eyes appeared with a boy about 10 years old. The boy's eyes were dull and didn't seem to be intelligent. The woman had a pair of wings on her back and fair skin. Her eyes were as red as blood. She was obviously a vampire. This was Emma and her son. Chapter 196. Chilly Base by the Shore. The long-haired young man and the bald middle-aged man were resting on a rock. The long-haired young man's long hair danced in the sea breeze. He picked up the pebbles beside his feet and tossed them into the sea. He said, "This first hunting ground is so boring. The creatures here are too weak. There's no challenge at all. If this goes on, when will I be able to break through?" The bald middle-aged man smiled and said, "Young master, we have set up a restriction on the first hunting ground. Only the top creatures here can reach level 10 supermutated. There are very few that can cause you trouble. This is also the reason why Madam arranged for you to come to the first hunting ground. After all, this place is much safer than the other hunting grounds." The long-haired young man pouted. "Don't mention my mother. She's the one controlling me at home. Now that I'm here, why do you keep mentioning her in front of me? Isn't it annoying?" The bald man quickly lowered his head. "Yes, I promise I won't mention her again." Just as the two of them were talking, two figures flew over quickly from the mountain peak in the distance. Their speed was almost 500 meters per second. Seeing this, the bald man was overjoyed. "Young master, the challenge is here." The long-haired young man was instantly energized. He jumped up and turned to look at the figures in the sky. Blonde hair, crimson eyes, a beautiful face and an enchanting figure. Her left hand was hugging a 10-year-old child. Seeing this, the young man's eyes lit up. "I didn't expect there to be such a beautiful woman in the first hunting ground." The bald man quickly reminded him. "Young master, the humans in the hunting ground are all inferior humans. They are primitive humans. You must not have any thoughts about them." The young man waved his hand impatiently. I know. The humans in the hunting ground are all prey. I'm just taking a look. I don't really want to do anything." Emma landed on the ground and carefully placed her son beside her. She then looked at the two of them and said coldly, "Did you guys kill the people in the base?" The long-haired young man smiled mockingly and said in English, "Who are you?" "Prey. We are hunters. Isn't it natural for us to hunt prey?" Emma said coldly, "A life for a life. Then die." As she spoke, her level 10 psychokinesis instantly attacked the long-haired young man. At the same time, she arrived beside the young man in just a second. Although the young man was not injured by the level 10 telekinesis attack, his speed was affected to a certain extent. It was during this time that Emma arrived in front of him. The claw hook on its right wing was aimed directly at the young man's chest. The young man didn't have time to dodge and could only raise his right arm to block. Crack. Sparks flew as Emma's right claw tore off the long-haired young man's sleeve. Emma frowned. That was because the young man's right arm was actually a black metal mechanical arm. The entire metal mechanical arm was connected to the young man's shoulder seamlessly. Attaching a mechanical arm to a human body was clearly not a technology that should exist on Earth. When the young man saw that his sleeve was torn, he chuckled. "Are all inferior humans so impatient? We've only met for a short while and you're already taking off your clothes?" The bald middle-aged man next to him reminded him. "Young master, be careful. She is a level 10 supermutant blood breed and also a level 10 psychokinesis." The young man was slightly surprised. But then, his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. This will be a challenge. As he spoke, the flesh on his right shoulder quickly wriggled and soon covered the entire mechanical arm. Then a 5-meter-long saber formed on the mechanical arm. The back of the saber was in the shape of a sawtooth. He waved the saber and slashed at Emma. Emma used her advantage in speed to dodge the saber and then continued to attack the long-haired young man. Soon, Emma gained the upper hand with the advantage of her level 10 psychokinesis. Seeing this, the young man grinned and said, "I couldn't tell that this coquettish girl has some skills. Since that's the case, I'll use all my strength to fight you." As he spoke, the saber on his right arm started to glow with a fiery red light. After a while, the 5-meter-long saber looked like a saber that had just been taken out of a fire. It was fiery red all over. The air around the saber was slightly distorted. It was obvious that the temperature of the saber was extremely high. The next moment he swung his right arm. The saber instantly left his body and flew forward. At the end of the saber, there was a fiery red chain connected to it. The saber came so fast that even Emma couldn't dodge it. Her right arm turned into a hard-horned claw and instinctively wanted to block it. Chi, with a soft sound, her entire right arm was easily chopped off by the saber. Blood immediately spurted out. One must know that the claw that Emma's right arm turned into could easily split open metal and stone. Not only was it sharp, but it was also extremely hard. But now it was easily chopped off by the opponent's chain saber. How could Emma not be horrified? The young man retracted the fiery red chain saber and said proudly, "Hee, a low-level creature will always be a low-level creature. Don't blame this young master for being ruthless." As he spoke, he waved the chain saber and attacked Emma again. But at this moment, Emma's body kept emitting cracking sounds. Accompanied by these sounds, her body quickly became bigger. Her eyes were so red that they could drip blood. On the right arm that was originally chopped off, the bones quickly grew out. Around the bones, blood vessels, muscle tissue, and finally, skin began to grow. Very quickly, Emma's body reached a height of 100 meters. Her wingspan reached a width of more than 500 meters. Although it didn't reach the extent of covering the sky, it was still very imposing. The young man was stunned at first, but the next moment he laughed. "Taking off your clothes when you can't win, isn't that a disgrace to the refined?" The current Emma was 100 meters tall, and her previous clothes were already torn apart. But she didn't care about that. Her right hand turned into a claw and grabbed at the young man. The young man's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. The fiery red chain saber on his right arm danced and attacked the huge Emma. His fiery red high-temperature chain sword could easily split open Emma's body. But such a small injury was not worth mentioning compared to Emma's 100-meter-tall body. After fighting for more than 20 rounds, the young man's stamina seemed to be running out. The chain saber retracted back into his body. The horned layer that wrapped around his right arm quickly receded. His right arm returned to the mechanical arm from before. Seeing this, the long-haired young man cursed, F***ck. Then he turned around and fled. But his speed was still too slow for the current Emma. Emma was about to catch up to him. He could only snap his fingers. The shoes on his feet quickly pieced together into a flying skateboard. He quickly fled at a speed of 1,000 meters per second. Seeing that the long-haired young man had fled, Emma flapped her wings and pounced at the bald middle-aged man. The bald middle-aged man snorted coldly. "You don't know what's good for you." The next moment, a huge amount of telekinesis directly pressed down on Emma. Boom! Emma was pressed to the ground by the huge telekinesis. The earth trembled and the trees next to her kept shaking. Several rocks on the coast also fell into the sea with a plop. Looking down from the sky, it was like a huge bat had fallen to the ground. Chapter 197. The young man had already escaped 2 kilometers away, but when he saw the huge Emma, he was crushed to the ground. He immediately made a turn in the air and flew back. He shouted to the bald middle-aged man, "Let me do it." As he spoke, his right arm turned into a flaming red chain blade and was about to kill Emma. When the bald middle-aged man saw him condense the flaming red chain blade again, his expression changed greatly. He said, "Young master, forcefully activating a genetic martial art a second time in such a short period of time will cause too much damage to your body." The young man waved the flaming red chain blade impatiently. I know. Anyway, I have plenty of healing medicine at home. Won't I recover after taking a few?" The bald middle-aged man regained his composure and nodded. "That's true. But young master, don't make a move first." The long-haired young man was unhappy. "What? Don't tell me you still have feelings for her?" The bald middle-aged man blushed slightly and said, "Young master, you must be joking. What I mean is that this prey is an excellent sparring partner. Young master, wait until you recover your strength before continuing to spar with her. Your battle experience and battle awareness will increase quickly. Who knows, whether you can break through your limits or not will depend on her." When the long-haired young man heard this, his face lit up. "That's good too. But you said that I can break through on her. You are insulting me." When the bald middle-aged man heard this, his face turned slightly red. This young master had a noble status, but he was always full of filthy words. It did not match his status. After that, the two of them walked quickly and left. Emma's body had already shrunk to normal size. She quickly took out a set of clothes from her son's bag and changed into it. After that, she reported everything to Immortal in her mind. When Immortal heard Emma's report, he thought to himself, "From the words and actions of these 2 people, they did not seem to be humans from Earth. Damn, there were really aliens?" What was up with the long-haired young man's mechanical arm? They called the mechanical arm a genetic martial art? It seemed that the power of this mechanical genetic martial art was much stronger than ordinary genetic martial arts. They also said that Earth's creatures were prey and that Earth was a hunting ground. There seemed to be a shocking truth behind this. At the same time, this made Immortal feel very unhappy. Earth was a hunting ground and Earth's creatures were prey. You guys sure talk big. With that in mind, he ordered Emma in his mind. If they come to fight with you again, lure them to China. Emma replied, yes, master. After resting for 3 hours, the two of them flew back again. The youth looked at Emma, who had already put on her clothes, and spoke maliciously. Yo, little girl, you put on your clothes quite quickly. Then let's see if you can put it on faster than I can make you take it off faster. As he spoke, the genetic martial art on his right arm condensed once again. Emma obeyed Immortal's instructions and did not fight him. Instead, he picked up his son and flew towards the east. Trying to run? The long-haired youth laughed and said, do you think you can escape? He stepped on the hoverboard and chased after Emma. Moments later, he caught up with Emma. Emma had no choice but to put her son aside and continue fighting with the long-haired youth. The result was the same as before. The long-haired youth was no match for Emma. However, with the bald middle-aged man beside her, Emma could not kill the long-haired youth even if she wanted to. She could only carry her son and continue flying towards the east. The long-haired youth rested for more than 2 hours. After recovering his strength, he chased after her again. Just like that, the cycle continued. China. In these 2 days, Immortal's sea dragon clone had been promoted to a level 8 super-mutated beast. Those powerful super-mutated beasts usually lived in the deep sea. Immortal could not catch them with his telekinesis alone. Therefore, if he wanted to promote again, Immortal would have to control the sea dragon clone with his consciousness and go to the sea personally. However, Immortal planned to deal with those 2 guys first. It was on this day that those 2 fellows chased after Emma and arrived in Wuxia. The bald middle-aged man said, young master, after these 2 days of fighting, your combat experience and combat awareness have improved a lot. And I used my telekinesis to detect that your cells are much stronger than when you first came here. Their capacity is also much greater. If everything goes well, the next battle should be when you break through your limit. Hearing this, the long-haired youth's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Great, I've been waiting for this moment. Then he used his hover skates to block Emma's path. He chuckled, little beauty, although you're not bad-looking, I can't bear to kill you. But I have no choice. In order to break through, I have to bear the pain and kill you. Let this young master admire your naked body one more time. As he spoke, the flesh on his right shoulder wriggled quickly and quickly wrapped around the mechanical arm on his right hand. The flaming scythe condensed once again. It was about to attack Emma. But at this moment, a figure flashed and blocked in front of Emma. This person was slender and had a cold gaze. He was dressed in black. It was none other than Immortal. Seeing this, the youth frowned slightly and stared at Immortal. You bumpkin, don't block me from admiring the body art. In his opinion, this blood-kindred woman was already the strongest existence in the first hunting ground. This man who suddenly appeared naturally couldn't be stronger than this blood-kindred woman. Therefore, he didn't take Immortal seriously at all. When Emma saw Immortal appear, she heaved a sigh of relief. Immortal turned around and said to Emma, you're tired. You're tired. Go rest. Emma nodded respectfully, yes, master. As she spoke, she flapped her wings and flew down. She carried her son and flew into the distance. She knew her master's strength. Even if she wanted to watch from the side, she had to stay as far away as possible. Otherwise, if she was caught in the crossfire, she would be seriously injured even if she didn't die. Seeing this bumpkin of the hunting ground ignore him, the long-haired youth couldn't help but feel annoyed. A lowly human, just a prey, dared to ignore a hunter like him. Courting death. Thinking of this, the flaming chain blade on his right arm was about to attack Immortal. But at this moment, the bald man beside him suddenly changed his expression. When he looked at Immortal, it was as if he had seen the most unbelievable thing in the world. This was because when he tried to use his telekinesis to probe this man's strength, he realized that his telekinesis couldn't penetrate this man's body at all. This could only mean one thing: this man's telekinesis was stronger than his. How was this possible? The restrictions they imposed on the first hunting ground ensured that there wouldn't be any existence that exceeded level 10 psychokinesis in the first hunting ground. But this man's telekinesis was stronger than his, a level 5 telekinesis grandmaster. What was going on? But amidst the shock, he quickly regained his senses. He quickly pulled up the long-haired youth who was trying to attack Immortal and shouted, "Young master, leave quickly." Chapter 198. Young master, leave quickly. The bald middle-aged man realized that Emosher's telekinesis was far stronger than his. After a short moment of shock, he quickly shouted to the young man beside him. The young man did not understand why a level 5 psychic master would be afraid of a low-level hunting ground native. However, when he saw the panicked look on the bald middle-aged man's face, he realized that things were not going well. He quickly adjusted his flying hover shoes and traveled 1,000 meters in a second, quickly escaping into the distance. Even so, the bald middle-aged man knew that the young master's chances of escaping were slim. He quickly gathered his telekinesis. All the telekinesis of a level 5 psychic master was directed at Emosher. However, at the next moment, Emosher's dragon will spread out. The ferocious and domineering dragon will instantly suppress the telekinesis of the bald middle-aged man back into his body. At the same time, the long-haired young man who had escaped 2 kilometers away seemed to have lost control of his flying hover shoes. He immediately fell from the sky. However, before he hit the ground, he was lifted up by an invisible force. He was lifted all the way to Emosher. At this moment, he finally understood why the bald middle-aged man beside him had asked him to run. His genetic martial arts were completely useless in front of this human. All the power in his body could not be used at all at this moment. He was lifted up in the air by that huge force. His entire body seemed to be imprisoned, and he could not even move his eyelids. He looked at the native of the first hunting ground in horror, his heart filled with fear. How could this native be so strong? When the bald middle-aged man saw Emosher staring at the long-haired young man, he quickly shouted at Emosher, "No, you can't kill the young master. Otherwise, the first hunting ground will face a huge disaster. All the living creatures in the first hunting ground will die." Rip. As soon as he finished his words, the long-haired young man was torn into pieces and flew far away. Fresh blood splattered in the wind, looking like wine-red pearls under the sun. Emosher then turned his head and looked at the bald middle-aged man. No one liked being threatened, especially when he was threatened by someone who was a weakling in his eyes. Therefore, Emosher did not hesitate to tear the young man into pieces. With his current draconic will, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for him to tear a level 10 great hunter in half? When the bald middle-aged man saw this, his expression became extremely unsightly. "You're finished? All of you are finished. When Master is angry, millions of corpses will fall and blood will flow for thousands of miles. Your entire hunting ground is finished." Rip. Before he could finish his words, the bald middle-aged man was torn to pieces. Blood splattered all over the ground. Until his death, he couldn't figure out how an aboriginal with such strong telekinesis could appear in the first hunting ground. As a level 5 psychic master, even if he were to go up against a level 6 or level 7 psychic master, he would still be able to put up a fight. In addition to his many trump cards, even if he couldn't win, escaping would be a piece of cake. However, facing this native of the first hunting ground, he did not even have the chance to use his trump card. In the distant sky, Emma saw this scene and felt even more reverence for Emosher's strength. She originally thought that even if her master could crush these 2 enemies, he would still need to use the shocking power of the Blood Buddha. However, she did not expect him to use his telekinesis to tear the 2 of them into pieces so easily. That's it? Using a popular Eastern saying from 30 years ago, it would be, "I've already taken off my pants and this is all you show me?" Compared to more than 10 days ago when he fought against Count Dracula, her master's strength seemed to be much stronger. Back then, Count Dracula's strength was about the same as her current strength. Her master still needed the gigantic Blood Buddha to suppress him. However, her master could easily tear these 2 enemies who were stronger than him into pieces. It was clear that her master's strength had indeed increased by a lot. At the same time, Emosher landed on a huge rock. He squinted his eyes and went through the memories that he had just plundered from the 2 of them. After a long while, Emosher slowly opened his eyes. In his eyes, there was a trace of shock, a trace of anger and a trace of indignation. It turned out that Earth was really just a hunting ground. All living things on Earth were just prey for others, including humans. 30 light years away from Earth, there was a planet called the Flaming Continent. Whether it was in terms of technology or biological genes, it was much more advanced than Earth. The humans there searched for life planets in the universe and used them as hunting grounds. On these life planets they released viruses. When these viruses infected the creatures on these planets and powerful infected creatures appeared, they would come to these planets and hunt these infected creatures. This included the local natives. Earth was the first of all their hunting grounds, so it was called the first hunting ground. Tens of thousands of years ago, they had already released various viruses on Earth. Virus X, zombie virus, bloodbreed virus. However, on Earth, the infected creatures caused by these viruses were too weak for them. Therefore, very few people visited Earth. With the strength of this long-haired young man, he did not dare to go to other hunting grounds. He could only come to Earth and try to break through his limits. After understanding this, Mosher did not know what to feel in his heart. The humans on Earth were self-righteous and thought that the human civilization they had built was very powerful. However, they did not know that they were just prey in other people's hunting grounds. The humans who thought themselves great were so small and laughable in front of the flaming continent. This strong impact on the world made Mosher unable to accept it for a while. Pessimism? Despair? Fear? It seemed to be a little bit of both, but it also seemed to be none of them. However, after only 10 minutes, Mosher's emotions slowly calmed down. He had the sign-in system and could rise at a speed these people could not imagine. His goal was the Titan Dragon. So what if it was a hunting ground? So what if it was prey? Soon I will let you know who is the prey. Who is the real hunter? Mosher looked towards the southern sky, his clear and cold eyes blazing with a surging fighting spirit. Next, Mosher ordered a virus clone to go to the South Pole. It was to guard beside the blood-colored waterfall and report to him immediately if anything happened. He knew from the memories of the two that the blood-colored waterfall at the South Pole was the only teleportation coordinate. If the people of the flaming continent wanted to come, they could only teleport there. He wanted to destroy that place, but from the memories of these people, he knew that it was just a coordinate. Even if he destroyed the blood-colored waterfall in Death Valley, the coordinates would still be there. Therefore, there was no need to waste time going there. At the same time, Mosher also felt a sense of urgency in his heart. The long-haired young man he had just killed was the son of the hunting ground owner. He had lost contact with the hunting ground owner's son here. It would not be long before the hunting ground owner would send someone to find him. He might even personally bring someone to find him. And their strength was 100% higher than that of a grand hunter, scavenger. That's why you can't guess. Chapter 199. From the memories of the two, Mosher knew that there were no corpse hunters on the flaming origin continent. The lowest level was hunter. Everyone was no longer an ordinary human when they were born. Some were hunters and some were psychokinesis. Above the great hunter there were 3 realms. They were Hunter, Desolate Hunter, and Great Desolate Hunter. After each of them surpassed level 10 Great Hunter, they would go to those hunting grounds to gain experience. In their view, every hunting ground was a barren land. As hunters of barren lands they were called Desolate Hunters. Mosher knew that the next time they sent someone to Earth to find the long-haired youth, they would definitely send a group of Desolate Hunters or even Desolate Hunters. With his current strength, Mosher felt that even if he could deal with those Desolate Hunters, he would most likely lose. Therefore, the most important thing right now was to improve his strength as soon as possible. Of course, the strength of the Sea Dragon clone also had to be improved as soon as possible. What Mosher wanted was not only to be able to deal with them, but to crush them. After returning to the base that day, Mosher asked the base chief to find someone who was more familiar with the geography. He took out the nautical diary and opened the map of the dragon ruins at the bottom of the sea. After looking at it for a moment, the person said carefully, "Mr. Mo, the map shows the Bermuda Triangle of the Atlantic Ocean." Mosher's heart skipped a beat. The Bermuda Triangle? But it was just a shock. In order to improve his strength, not to mention the Bermuda Triangle, even if it was a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, as long as it was 100% safe, he would still go there. After 11 o'clock that night, Mosher did not use the special event to sign in. Instead, he directly specified the modification liquid. 20,000 drops of modification liquid was enough for him to be promoted to level 9 Great Hunter. After taking the 20,000 drops of modification liquid, he was successfully promoted to level 9 Great Hunter. After the promotion he did not stop at all. His consciousness switched to the Sea Dragon clone. Controlling the Sea Dragon clone, he swam out of the mouth of the Yellow River and entered the Bohai Sea. Compared to other oceans, the Bohai Sea was not big, but its area was nearly 8,000 square kilometers. In such a large area of the sea, the number of mutant creatures was also extremely large. Mosher controlled the Sea Dragon clone to slowly move forward in the water. Seeing the 28-meter-long Sea Dragon clone, the mutant fish and shrimps swayed their bodies and swaggered over. All of them turned around and fled in panic. Mosher was too lazy to chase after them. These were all super mutant beasts below level 5, and were of little use to the current Sea Dragon clone. His dragon will continue to scan his surroundings. Soon, a level 10 super mutated beast appeared more than 30 kilometers away. It was a mutated devilfish that was 30 meters long. Immortal nodded. Level 10 super mutated beast, that was his goal. He controlled the sea dragon clone, swaying its tail and moving its limbs. Soon he entered the sight of the mutant devilfish. When the mutant devilfish saw that this creature dared to intrude into its territory, it immediately opened its mouth and hissed. Roar. Although it was in the middle of the sea. However, he could still feel the aura of its roar. Under normal circumstances, the other mutated creatures would have turned around and fled upon hearing its cry. However, Immortal ignored it and continued to swim toward the mutant devilfish. Seeing this, the mutant devilfish couldn't help but roar angrily again. Roar. The next moment, its whole body leaped like lightning and swam toward Immortal. Immortal sneered in his heart. His dragon will instantly spread out. If his original body was here, he could tear the mutant devilfish into pieces with his level 3 dragon will. However, the sea dragon clone could only withstand level 2 dragon will. Even with level 2 dragon will, the tail of the mutant devilfish had been torn apart. The mutant devilfish screamed in pain. It continued to struggle in the sea. Immortal took the opportunity to swim over. He swung his tail violently. Slap. It hit the head of the mutant devilfish hard. The sharp blade on the tail directly cut open a bloody wound on the head of the mutant devilfish. The wound was so deep that bones could be seen. The sea was suddenly dyed red with blood. Immortal controlled the sea dragon clone, and its sharp claws slashed across the abdomen of the mutant devilfish. Rip. A large piece of flesh was torn out of its abdomen. After the sea dragon clone swallowed half of the flesh, it opened its mouth again and bit the mutant devilfish. The mutant devilfish was furious. It could clearly feel that its strength was much stronger than its opponent, but it couldn't beat him. How could it not be angry? In its anger, it didn't retreat. Instead, it continued to open its mouth and bite Immortal's sea dragon clone. At this moment, Immortal's dragon will spread out again. It directly attacked the brain of the mutant devilfish. The mutant devilfish felt a sharp pain in its brain and almost fainted. Immortal took the opportunity to bite the back of the mutant devilfish with his huge mouth that was 7 to 8 meters long. The back of the mutant devilfish was originally covered with a layer of horny armor that was extremely hard. However, the teeth of the sea dragon clone were far sharper than the teeth of ordinary mutated beasts. After biting through the back of the mutant devilfish, Immortal controlled the sea dragon clone, and its body kept rolling. Death roll. After rolling more than 10 times, the horny armor on the back of the mutant devilfish, along with a large piece of flesh, was directly peeled off. Several bones were directly exposed to the sea. The surrounding sea water was dyed red. It was as if a large amount of blood mist was rising. Ow! Hiss! The mutant devilfish once again let out a hissing sound. However, it wasn't a threat this time but a scream. The shrill scream traveled along the sea water and spread over a radius of more than 10 kilometers. Within 10 kilometers, all the mutant beasts trembled in fear when they heard the screams, and quickly retreated into their respective caves. The mutant devilfish still wanted to escape. However, Immortal's sea dragon clone's huge mouth directly bit its head this time. The sharp teeth directly penetrated its skull. In the end, the mutant devilfish struggled for a moment, roared a few times and slowly quieted down. The sea dragon clone was already a level 8 mutated beast. Coupled with the level 2 dragon will, it was not a problem to kill a level 10 mutated beast that was 2 levels higher. After more than 20 minutes, the sea dragon clone had completely devoured the level 10 mutated beast. Its body length had now reached 29 meters. Its level had also risen to a level 9 mutated beast. It was only a hair's breadth away from becoming a level 10 mutated beast. Immortal controlled the sea dragon clone and killed another level 10 mutated beast. After devouring it, the sea dragon clone successfully became a level 10 mutated beast. At this time, the sea dragon clone was completely able to withstand Immortal's level 3 dragon will. Immortal couldn't help but feel a little excited. Now that it had become a level 10 mutated beast, the next step was to evolve into a dire beast. Chapter 200. The sea dragon clone had become a level 10 super mutated beast. Next, it was time to move on to the next level. Immortal learned from the memories of the two people from the flaming beginning continent that the level after the super mutated beast was called the desolate beast. The desolate beast was much stronger than a level 10 super mutated beast. In the next few days, Immortal searched for level 9 and level 10 super mutated beasts in the Bohai Sea to devour. There were about 50 level 10 super mutated beasts in the 8,000 square kilometers of sea. As for level 9 super mutated beasts, there were more than 1,000 of them. After Immortal devoured so many level 9 and level 10 super mutated beasts, the sea dragon clone still couldn't evolve. It wasn't because it had reached its limit. The sea dragon clone's strength was one realm higher than Immortal's. Therefore, for it, the limit should be a level 10 dire beast. The reason why it couldn't evolve after devouring so many mutated beasts was because the energy it devoured wasn't enough for it to evolve. Immortal had to leave the Bohai Sea and swim to the East China Sea. Along the way, Immortal would let the sea dragon clone devour any level 9 super mutated beasts they encountered. After reaching the East China Sea, he searched for level 10 super mutated beasts with his dragon will and continued to devour them. After 2 days, he devoured 5 level 10 super mutated beasts. Immortal could feel that the sea dragon clone's strength was increasing. But obviously, it was still some distance away from evolving into a desolate beast. At the same time, on the coastline of Dongying, a mutated crow was flying toward the sea in a hurry. As it flew, it let out a hoarse and unpleasant cry. Yeah. On the ground behind it, a green-faced zombie was also running toward the sea at an extremely fast speed. This crow was Zhao Gao, who was sent to Dongying by Qin Shi Huang to kill the evil man Su Fu. That green-faced zombie was Butcher Bai Qi. However, at this moment, Butcher Bai Qi was surrounded by a large number of colorful mutated snakes that were chasing after him. Butcher Bai Qi kept swinging his bronze sword to kill these mutated snakes. He was now a level 3 super mutated zombie. These mutated snakes were only level 5 super mutated beasts. Logically speaking, it should not be difficult for Bai Qi to kill these mutant snakes. However, there were simply too many mutant beasts. 3 days ago they discovered Su Fu's lair. Bai Qi immediately brought those zombie figurines to capture the demon Su Fu. However, he did not expect that Su Fu would be able to summon tens of thousands of mutated snakes. They had killed countless mutated snakes, but there were still mutated snakes that managed to burrow into the holes on the zombie figurines' bodies, devouring their flesh and blood. In the end, only Bai Qi managed to break out of the encirclement. Zhao Gao flew out of the encirclement. However, those mutant snakes still did not give up. They chased after Bai Qi all the way to the shore. At this moment, under the encirclement of numerous mutated snakes, a 5-colored mutated snake had climbed up Bai Qi's leg while he was not paying attention. There was a fist-sized hole in his leg. The snake slithered into the hole and began devouring Bai Qi's flesh. Bai Qi stretched out his hand and reached into the hole. He grabbed the tail of the mutated snake and fiercely pulled. Bang! This tug actually tore the snake apart. As for the front half of its body, it was still inside Bai Qi's leg, continuing to devour his flesh. Other mutated snakes continued to swarm over. Bai Qi swung the bronze sword in his hand and killed over 50 mutated snakes. Then he swung the bronze sword and slashed at Bai Qi's right leg. There was a soft sound and blood splattered everywhere. The thick smell of blood immediately filled the air. When the mutated snakes smelled the blood, they immediately surged over like a flood. Bai Qi jumped with one leg, instantly covering a distance of over 100 meters. He broke free from the encirclement. At the same time he called out to the mutated crow in the sky. Zhao Gao. At this moment, the mutated crow's body emitted a series of cracking sounds. Its body was rapidly expanding. Gradually, a naked human form was revealed. This person was emaciated as if he only had skin and bones. On his back, there was a pair of black wings that were 7 meters wide. It looked like the wings of a crow. Then he pounced down. He grabbed Bai Qi's shoulder and flew toward the sea. As he flew, he cackled. Who would have thought that Butcher Bai Qi would be in such a sorry state? Bai Qi sheathed the bronze sword in the scabbard at his waist and said angrily, "This time we failed to kill the evil man Su Fu and disgraced the emperor's order. Both of us will be sentenced to death." Zhao Gao chuckled and said, "Hey! The world is in chaos and the great Qin Empire is destroyed. The emperor only has 8,000 soldiers. If he wants to reclaim the lost land and revive the great Qin Empire, every soldier must be used to their full potential. When the emperor is in dire need of manpower, how can he kill his subjects so easily?" Bai Qi was extremely vexed. "I have disgraced the emperor's order. If the emperor doesn't kill me, how can I live?" Zhao Gao was too lazy to continue. He only cackled. "That's for later. We'll talk about it when we get back." Not long after they left, a giant python appeared on the beach. This giant python was made up of thousands of mutated snakes. The giant python was over 100 meters long. On its head sat a Taoist priest. The Taoist priest had white hair and a white beard. He was in high spirits like an old immortal in the legends. He looked in the direction where Bai Qi and Zhao Gao escaped and laughed. "Ha! Butcher Bai Qi, go back and tell your dog emperor that I, Su Fu, will lead my army to the west today and attack the mausoleum of Emperor Qin. His great Qin Empire will be mine. Let Emperor Qin clean his ass, neck and wait. At the same time, Mo Shi controlled the sea dragon clone with his consciousness and continued to wander in the East Sea. There were fewer and fewer level 10 mutated beasts in the East Sea now. Mo Shi was wondering if he should continue to devour more creatures in the sea. Otherwise, if he continued like this, when could he evolve into a wild beast? At this moment he suddenly had a thought. Because he detected that there was a large snake current in the east of the East Sea, which was swimming in this direction. What he saw before was a huge school of fish. But now what he detected with his dragon consciousness was an extremely large snake current. The snake current was 5 kilometers wide and hundreds of kilometers long. In this huge snake current, there were countless colorful mutated snakes. All the creatures in the East Sea, including the level 10 mutated beasts, could only flee in panic when they saw this huge snake current. Above these snakes, there was a 5-colored giant python that was formed by countless mutated snakes. It was hundreds of meters long. On the head of the giant python, a Taoist priest sat cross-legged. According to the information he received from Emperor Qin, Mo Shi guessed that this person was very likely to be Su Fu. Su Fu went to the Immortal Island in the sea, to seek the elixir of immortality and obtained a virus that could truly strengthen the human body and make people immortal. The virus that he gave to Emperor Qin was a zombie virus that turned Emperor Qin and the others into half-human, half-ghost zombies. Seeing that Su Fu controlled so many mutated snakes, it was just as Emperor Qin said. Su Fu the evil man lived up to his name. Chapter 201. When Mo Shi detected the evil man Su Fu, he immediately controlled the sea dragon avatar to float to the surface. The white-bearded and white-haired demon Su Fu naturally also saw Mo Shi's sea dragon clone. He could feel that this mutated beast was very strong. It was very likely that it far exceeded the strength of a level 10 mutated beast. However, he didn't even pay attention to it. Based on his understanding over the past 1,000 years, there seemed to be some kind of restriction in the entire world. Any creature that reached that restriction would no longer be able to level up. As long as this super mutated beast didn't break through the restriction, his snake tide would be able to exhaust it to death. After all, no super mutated beast could survive in this 5-kilometer wide and 100-kilometer long snake tide. The snake tide directly surged towards Mo Shi. They tried to run over him. However, Mo Shi's dragon consciousness directly swept across. A mutated snake directly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. It spread out on the sparkling surface of the sea. Bang! Another mutated snake exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Then pa 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 pa, the 5-kilometer wide snake tide kept exploding like firecrackers. On the surface of the sea, the blood mist slowly spread out like a veil. Demon Lord Su Fu was only slightly surprised when he saw this scene at first. This super mutated beast could actually use psychic power. However, he had lived for nearly 2,000 years and had seen all kinds of strange things. Especially on this sea there were many strange things. Therefore he was only surprised for a moment. Then he shook his head. This method consumes a lot of psychic power. In a moment, its psychic power will be exhausted. A beast will be a beast after all. However, this thought only lasted for a few seconds. Then he frowned slightly. Because he saw his snake tide constantly exploding, and the speed was getting faster and faster. In just 10 seconds, it had already exploded 5 kilometers long. However, he still ignored it. His snake tide was more than 100 kilometers long. This mutated beast's psychic power was very strong, but he didn't believe that it was strong enough to explode all the snakes within 100 kilometers. Pa 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 pa, the snake tide continued to explode. Its speed was still increasing. Soon, the snake tide had already exploded 10 kilometers. At this moment, Su Fu finally became a little anxious. His snake tide was 100 kilometers long. This guy, on the other hand, had already traveled 10 kilometers in less than a minute. How could things go on like this? Thinking of this, he leaped 100 meters into the air. Then a pair of 7-meter-long wings sprouted from its back. It flapped its wings and floated in the air. And the 100-meter-long python beneath him swam towards Mo Shi's sea dragon clone. It opened its huge mouth, intending to swallow the sea dragon clone whole. However, this 100-meter-long python was nothing in front of Mo Shi's dragon consciousness. Pa 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 pa, it was still the sound of firecrackers. Under Mo Shi's dragon will, the 100-meter-long pythons also exploded. The 100-meter-long python was originally made up of thousands of mutated snakes. At this moment, these mutated snakes exploded one after another, and the 100-meter-long giant python also collapsed like a sand sculpture. When Su Fu saw this, he couldn't help but fly into a rage. Today he was going to cross the straits, attack China, and conquer Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum before conquering Great Qin. But now he was stopped by a super mutant beast. How could this not make him angry? Die, evil creature! Su Fu roared, and the flesh on his right hand wriggled and turned into a 10-meter-long sword. In the next moment, it flapped its wings and slashed towards Immortal's sea dragon clone. However, he was only halfway through when he found that his sword couldn't land anymore. It was as if it was caught by an invisible hand in the air. He couldn't help but tremble. How could this mutant beast's telekinesis be so strong? He had lived for so many years, and this was the first time he was restrained by another creature's telekinesis. In the next moment, rip, Su Fu's entire body was torn into several pieces by a huge force. At the same time, his 100-kilometer-long snake tide had reached the end of its explosion. A bloody mist that was 6 to 7 kilometers wide and more than 100 kilometers long quickly spread out. On the other hand, Immortal's mind was filled with evolution points. Killed level 5 strong mutant beast, evolution points plus 5,000. Killed level 3 strong mutant beast, evolution points plus 3,000. Killed level 6 strong mutant beast, evolution points plus 6,000. This 100-kilometer-long snake tide actually gave Immortal more than 30 billion evolution points. Immortal couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This guy is here to give me evolution points, right? However, before Immortal killed Su Fu, he plundered his memories. From his memories, he found out that what he killed just now wasn't Su Fu's main body. It was just a clone of Su Fu. His main body was still in a valley in Japan. And when Immortal found out what his main body was, he couldn't help but feel happy. Whether or not the sea dragon clone could quickly break through all depended on Su Fu's main body. Thinking of this, Immortal immediately controlled the sea dragon clone and swam towards Japan. After about half a day he arrived at Japan. Then he climbed onto the shore. Now that the sea dragon clone had 4 limbs, when it crawled on the ground, it looked like a 30-meter-long mutant crocodile from afar. Japan was also full of zombies. However, when these zombies saw Immortal's sea dragon clone, they all turned around and wanted to escape. Immortal naturally wouldn't let them go. Dragons will swept across. All the zombies and infected creatures exploded like firecrackers. When the sea dragon clone went ashore, its speed was slightly slower than in the water. Immortal spent another 2 hours before he arrived at the valley. His dragons will swept across the valley. He saw a white python in the valley. Under his dragon's will's investigation, this white python had actually reached a length of more than 5,000 meters. The thickest part of its body was actually more than 100 meters thick. Even Immortal had long known about this python through the memories of Su Fu's clone. But at this moment he couldn't help but feel a little shocked. There was actually such a huge creature in the world. It could be said that this giant python alone filled the entire valley. This was Su Fu's main body. More than 1,500 years ago, Su Fu's strength had already reached the realm of a level 10 great hunter. After that, he had been trying to break through again. But he couldn't break through at all. He also felt that there were restrictions in the world, and it seemed that only when the strength of his body reached a certain level could he break through the restrictions. Therefore he used a secret method to transfer his consciousness into the body of a snake. As for his original body, he treated it as a clone. Over the past 1,000 years, he had been constantly devouring and finally reached such a huge figure. Unfortunately, although his strength was infinitely close to the next realm, he couldn't break through no matter what. It was the same as Count Dracula back then. Chapter 202. Immortal's sea dragon doppelganger climbed to the top of the mountain. It looked down at the 5,000-meter-long python in the valley. The python's blood-red eyes alone were more than 30 meters in diameter. Every white scale on its body was half the size of a basketball court. He had seen a lot of huge creatures in the past few days in the sea. For example, a 600 or 700-meter-long mutant whale. But he had never seen a giant creature that could reach 5,000 meters long. At this time, the python had also sensed Immortal's arrival. It looked up at Immortal's sea dragon avatar on the mountain peak with a hint of anger in its eyes. The next moment, it opened its cave-like mouth. It let out a terrifying hiss. Roar. This sound spread over a radius of tens of kilometers. All the mutant beasts within a radius of tens of kilometers fell to the ground in horror when they heard this roar. Even the boulders on both sides of the valley fell into the valley under this roar. At the same time, the sea dragon doppelganger felt a sharp pain in its head. Its body faintly felt like it was about to be torn apart. Immortal was also startled inwardly. They were both level 10 super mutant beasts, but the difference in strength was so great. It seemed that this old thing that had lived for nearly 2,000 years was not to be trifled with. Fortunately, the sea dragon doppelganger had also become a level 10 super mutant beast. Otherwise, the sea dragon doppelganger wouldn't have been able to withstand this sound wave attack. It seemed that he had to end the battle quickly. Thinking of this, Emo condensed his dragon will. The next moment, at an altitude of 50 kilometers above the valley, 100 dragon will meteors with a diameter of 100 meters were formed. As soon as these dragon will meteors were formed, they quickly smashed into the valley. The python seemed to have sensed that something was wrong. It hurriedly climbed up the mountain peak next to it, trying to escape. However, it was too late. Boom! A dragon will meteor directly smashed into its body. Immediately, the surrounding mountain peaks collapsed. Large boulders rumbled as they rolled down to the ground. The giant python was hit by the dragon will meteor, and the dozens of scales on its body suddenly loosened. Blood flowed out, dyeing the snow-white scales red. Emo was a little worried that this guy would not be able to withstand the attack of the dragon will meteor and be blasted into pieces. That would be awkward. Fortunately, this guy's body was quite sturdy, so he didn't die on the spot under the bombardment of the dragon will meteorite. If Sufu were to know that this tiny mutated beast was worried that he would be crushed to death, he would most likely vomit blood and die on the spot. This was definitely not harmful but extremely insulting. Boom 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 boom. The dragon will meteors continued to crash down. At first, the giant python was barely able to withstand the attack of a draconic meteor. It was still struggling to escape the valley. However, with so many meteors falling from the sky, everything within a radius of tens of kilometers had already collapsed. Where could it escape to? In the end, after the 100 dragon will meteorites landed, everything within 50 kilometers had turned into ruins. The valley from before was long gone. As for the white python, its body was already badly mutilated. There was hardly a single undamaged scale. It lay powerlessly in the ruins, breathing heavily through its nostrils. Every time it breathed, it stirred up smoke and dust. Emo controlled the sea dragon clone, found an angle and bit down. Roar! The white python roared powerlessly. Its body also struggled powerlessly. However, the bombardment just now had almost broken all its bones. It wanted to turn around and attack, but it couldn't do it at all. The sea dragon clone bit a bloody hole in its body. After getting into the bloody hole, it began to devour. It devoured very quickly, and in a moment, it had already swallowed more than 20 meters forward. The giant python writhed in pain as if it wanted to throw the sea dragon clone out. However, its writhing seemed so powerless. About half an hour later, the sea dragon clone had already swallowed more than 100 meters forward. It was also at this moment that its body began to make cracking sounds. Emo was delighted. He was finally going to break through. Accompanied by the cracking sounds, the muscles in the sea dragon clone's body were constantly being torn apart. Because Emo consciousness was in its body at this time, Emo felt the tearing pain. He immediately switched his consciousness back into his main body. As for what kind of pain the sea dragon clone was suffering at this time, he didn't know. As the saying goes, when there's blessings, share. If there's trouble, I'll leave first. Emo felt that this breakthrough, because it was a breakthrough of a major realm, would definitely take a long time. Therefore he didn't go back for a while. He planned to wait for half an hour before going back. During this free time he flipped through Sufu's memories. He found that this guy's memories were actually blurry. All kinds of memory fragments were intertwined and very chaotic. It was like a ball of wool that had been played with by a naughty child. He couldn't figure it out at all. After looking at it for a long time, Emo felt dizzy. Emo could only put down these memories and ignore them. Perhaps this guy had lived for too long, causing his memories to be in chaos. Or maybe something went wrong when this guy transferred his consciousness into the python's body. Emo didn't bother with it anymore. After waiting for half an hour, his consciousness returned to the sea dragon clone again. At this time, the 5-kilometer-long python had been swallowed until there was not even a trace left. Emo was secretly amazed. What AF * King Big Appetite? The 5-kilometer-long python was devoured in half an hour. The sea dragon clone was too good at eating. Since it had eaten so much, its body should be extremely huge at this time. It should be at least 500 or 600 meters long, right? However, Emo looked at it. How could it be 500 or 600 meters long? It wasn't even 50 or 60 meters long. At this time, the sea dragon clone was only about 20 meters long. *CK. Emo cursed in his heart. After swallowing a 5-kilometer-long python, not only did its body not grow longer, it even shrank. Did it have to be like this? He hurriedly checked the attributes of the sea dragon clone in his mind. Species, sea dragon. Level 3 desolate beast. Ability, evolution by devouring dragon will attack, sound wave attack. When Immortal saw this, his heart pounded wildly. Level 3 desolate beast. Not only had the sea dragon clone broken through, but it had also risen 3 levels in a row. It had reached level 3 desolate beast. How much energy was contained in that giant python's body? But it made sense when he thought about it. That giant python had been devouring and accumulating energy for a breakthrough for more than 1,000 years. However, because there were restrictions on Earth, it couldn't break through. But the energy had been accumulating. This energy was enough for it to break through to level 3 desolate beast. Now that the sea dragon clone had devoured it, it naturally obtained all the energy in its body. It wasn't surprising that it directly advanced to level 3 desolate beast. Chapter 203. After the sea dragon clone broke through, it was directly promoted to a level 3 wild beast. It didn't look like it had changed much, but its body had shrunk. However, Immortal knew from the memories of the 2 guys from the Flaming Land that the strength of a wild beast couldn't be judged from its appearance. In theory, the bigger it was, the stronger it was. This was for sure. But the bigger it was, the more energy it consumed. Imagine if it was 1,000 meters long, how much food would it have to eat to maintain its energy consumption? So for thousands of years, wild beasts had evolved the most suitable way of survival for them. Usually in their ordinary form, they could only grow to 30 to 50 meters long at most. However, when they needed to burst into battle, their bodies could rapidly expand and lengthen. So at this time, the sea dragon only looked 20 meters long on the surface. In fact, its body length in its battle form had already reached more than 130 meters. The most important thing was that after evolving into a wild beast, energy had appeared in all the cells in the sea dragon clone's body. When this energy gathered together and sprayed out, the power was extremely shocking. Knowing this, Immortal was in a good mood. Controlling the sea dragon clone, he ran towards the sea. After the sea dragon clone evolved into a level 3 wild beast, its running speed on land had greatly increased. It could reach 30 meters per second. When it came to the sea, it jumped out of the water with a splash. In the water, the sea dragon clone was much faster. It could reach 50 meters per second. Moreover, wild beasts had a natural pressure on ordinary mutated beasts. When the sea dragon clone released this pressure, all the mutant beasts within a radius of 1,000 meters scattered and fled in panic. However, Immortal withdrew this pressure based on the principle of keeping a low profile. It swam freely in the sea. At the same time, he said in his mind, "System, sign in for a special event." Killing such a big python was naturally a special event. Soon, the system's voice sounded, "Frowny face, sign in successful. Sign in event, killed a 1,000-year-old mutant python. Sign in reward, immune to sound wave attacks." Immortal checked the skill description in his mind. Frowny face, immune to sound wave attacks. Immune to any form and wavelength of sound wave attacks. The sound wave attack of the 1,000-year-old mutant python almost tore the body of the sea dragon clone apart. Now that he was immune to sonic attacks, he could treat such attacks as music to his ears. Moreover, this skill was equally effective on both the main body and the doppelganger. After signing in, Immortal continued to wander in the sea. Now that it had evolved into a desolate beast, it was definitely an overlord in the sea. Not only in the sea but on the entire Earth they were overlords. Even the current Immortal had no chance of winning against the sea dragon clone. Because of the strength of its body, even the dragon wool meteorite could only scratch it. The Qin crossbow, which was said to be able to break through all things, could only leave a shallow mark on its body. However, Immortal felt that this was not enough. It wouldn't be long before the Flaming Dawn continent sent more experts over. Moreover, all of them were either scavenger hunters or scavenger hunters who were even stronger than scavenger hunters. If he were to rely on his own body, he would at most be able to reach level 10 supermutated for the time being. He didn't know if the restrictions on Earth would work on him. But even if they were useless, he would need to wait for a certain opportunity to break through to the level of a scavenger. Therefore, the best way to increase his strength now was to not try to increase the strength of the sea dragon clone. At the same time, on the coast of the East Sea, Zhao Gao took Bai Qi and fell directly on the beach. Huff, huff. Zhao Gao gasped for breath. Bai Qi hissed, "Let's go, or the evil man Su Fu and his snake tide will catch up." Zhao Gao gasped for breath and said, "That's right. You make it sound so easy. I've been flying the whole way and you haven't done anything at all." As he spoke, his body crackled and quickly shrank. In the end, he returned to a mutated crow. He squeaked. Bai Qi immediately grabbed Zhao Gao and put him on his shoulder. Then he strode in the direction of Emperor Qin's mausoleum. But before leaving he looked back at the sea. He was puzzled. With the speed of Su Fu's snake tide, he shouldn't be far from us. Why can't I see him yet? The mutated crow hissed. Maybe he was delayed by something. Anyway, let's report to the emperor first. More than an hour later, the man and the bird returned to Emperor Qin's mausoleum. They reported to Emperor Qin that Su Fu was about to lead a snake tide to attack. Emperor Qin was furious. Su Fu, how dare you rebel? If I don't take his head, I will be ridiculed by the world. General Bai Qi, immediately lead the soldiers to set up an arrow formation. I want this evil man Su Fu to never return. Bai Qi received the order and immediately began to set up the array. However, they set up the arrow formation and waited for a full 3 days. Su Fu didn't appear. Bai Qi was terrified. Would the emperor think that he and Zhao Gao had committed the crime of deceiving the emperor? Although Emperor Qin was puzzled, it was good news that Su Fu didn't attack. Although the Qin army's arrow formation was powerful, with their current strength, it was not enough to resist the 200-mile snake tide. After a few days, all the troops in the depths of the underground palace would wake up. At that time, it would be time to restore the prestige of the Qin dynasty. Emperor Qin and the others naturally didn't know that Su Fu and his snake tide had been destroyed by Immortal. At this moment, Immortal was controlling the sea dragon clone to swim in the sea. He spread out his dragon will and constantly probed all the infected creatures around him. About half an hour later, a level 10 mutated beast appeared within the range of Immortal's dragon will. He immediately swam towards the level 10 mutated beast. It was a mutated great white shark more than 300 meters long. It was opening its bloody mouth and swallowing any mutated fish it saw along the way. At this moment, it saw the 20-meter-long sea dragon clone appear in its sight. It immediately swung its tail and swam towards the sea dragon clone. In the eyes of this 300-meter-long mutated great white shark, the sea dragon clone was barely enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Therefore, it didn't take the sea dragon clone seriously at all. Just like when facing other mutated beasts, it swam over with its mouth wide open. Seeing this, Immortal smiled faintly in his heart. Let's test the strength of this sea dragon clone. He didn't use a sonic attack or an energy attack. He simply wanted to test the physical strength of the sea dragon clone. Seeing that the mutated great white shark was only 5 meters away from the sea dragon clone, Immortal controlled the sea dragon clone and turned around. The 7 or 8 meter long tail suddenly swung towards the great white shark. Because the tail was so fast, it stirred up the seawater within a 5-kilometer radius, which was surging wildly. Wherever the tail swept past, white waves rolled, forming a fan-shaped mark. Chapter 204. Seeing this, the mutant great white shark was shocked. It hurriedly tried to dodge. But with its speed, how could it dodge the sea dragon clone's attack? Smack! The tail of the sea dragon clone slapped the mutant great white shark's head hard. Crack! The great white shark's head was instantly smashed into a bloody mess by this blow. A huge hole was directly drawn out of its skull. Even its entire head was bent 180 degrees. Then there was no more. The level 10 super mutant great white shark was motionless. Its body slowly floated with the waves. Immortal couldn't help but be delighted when he saw this. The strength of a level 3 wild beast was actually so terrifying. Soon, he controlled the sea dragon clone to devour the great white shark, and then continued to swim forward. While swimming, Immortal had restrained his aura all the time. As a result, many super mutant beasts swam over proudly, wanting to devour the sea dragon clone as their dinner. In the end, they were easily killed by the sea dragon clone. In 2 days, the sea dragon clone had devoured no less than 10 level 10 super mutant beasts. However, after being promoted to a level 3 wild beast, it was extremely difficult to advance another level. This matter couldn't be rushed. Immortal could only control the sea dragon clone to swim in the direction of the Atlantic Ocean while devouring these level 10 super mutant beasts. 2 days later, Immortal controlled the sea dragon clone and wobbled to the bottom of the East Sea. The depths of the East Sea were dark and lonely. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their fingers. Even though Immortal was experienced and knowledgeable, and his strength had reached the level of an overlord on Earth. But in the face of such a dark and deep environment, he couldn't help but feel a little afraid. After all, the unknown was the most terrifying. The psychological pressure caused by the surrounding darkness was simply unimaginable. If a timid person came, this huge psychological pressure would suffocate them on the spot. Fortunately, Immortal had dragon's will. In the sea, Although the detection range of Dragon's Will was compressed, it could still detect a radius of 100 kilometers. After activating Dragon's Will, he could see everything around him. The seaweed, the rocks on the bottom of the sea, the sand, and the mutant creatures. No matter what, nothing could escape the detection of his Dragon's Will. Only then did Immortal feel a lot more relaxed. From the looks of it, this was a zone of death. It was impossible for life to exist here. However, when Immortal scanned the area with his draconic will, he discovered that not only were there life forms, they were all level 8 mutant beasts and above. At this moment, a huge ravine appeared in front of him. Immortal had already learned the topographic map of the seabed from someone in the base. At this moment he already knew that this huge gully was the East Sea Trench. It is also called the Wuxia Trench. The trench was about 1,000 kilometers long and had an average depth of 6,000 meters. The deepest part was almost 8,000 meters. The cross-section of the trench was in the shape of a V. However, the trench was now surrounded by thick blood-red vines. The thickest one had a diameter of about 10 meters. They looked like thick blood-red pythons. These vines didn't stick to the ground like the vines on the ground. They followed the undercurrent in the sea and drifted left and right, twisting their waists and waving their arms at the mutated beasts that passed by. It was as if he was saying, "Come and play with me." Above the trench, countless huge sarcomas filled with blood vessels grew. Each sarcomas had a diameter of more than 50 meters. These sarcomas were like a sarcoma's roof that covered the top of the trench. Immortal didn't know if the sarcomas covered the entire 1,000-kilometer-long trench. However, at least within his detection range, the top of the trench was covered by sarcomas. All the sarcomas pulsed every half a minute. It was as if you were a living heart. It was disgusting and terrifying. A level 8 mutant beast passed by above the trench. A 5-meter thick sanguisurincus wrapped around it. The level 8 mutant beast kept struggling. However, it was to no avail. A few more thick sanguisurincus stretched over. They dragged the level 8 mutant beast into the sarcomas. Immortal's draconic will could clearly detect that the sanguisurincus kept sucking the mutated beast's blood. In just 2 minutes, the mutant beast was sucked dry and turned into a dried corpse. However, even if it was just a dried corpse, the mother nest didn't let it go. In the trench below the mother nest, the entire trench was filled with blood water. The dried corpse of the mutated beast was thrown into the blood water by the sanguisurincus. The blood water immediately bubbled. Soon, the dried corpse was completely melted. Immortal was shocked when he saw this scene. The mother nest he saw in Manhattan only wanted to devour the entire city. However, the mother nest he saw now wanted to devour the entire sea. After devouring the sea, it even wanted to devour the entire earth. By then, the entire earth would be a huge mother nest. What a huge ambition. What was different from the mother nest on land was that the mother nest on land only devoured humans to create a blood pool to increase the strength of mutated beasts and zombies. However, the mother nest at the bottom of the sea was actually devouring mutated beasts to expand its range. Of course, it also increased the strength of a small number of mutated beasts. All the level 10 mutant beasts in the vicinity were created by the blood pool in the mother nest. Immortal connected to the mother nest consciousness and found that they created these mutant beasts so that they could catch weaker mutated beasts for the mother nest to absorb. At this time, more than a dozen mutant beasts had caught many mutated beasts and thrown them near the mother nest. The mother nest sanguisurincus would quickly catch these mutated beasts and devour them. Through connecting to the mother nest consciousness, Immortal knew that the entire East Sea Trench was a huge mother nest. And this was only a relatively small one among all the mother nests at the bottom of the sea. There were 28 trenches in the world and 28 mother nests at the bottom of the sea. With so many mother nests, it was only a matter of time before they devoured the entire sea creatures and even the entire earth. Retreating from the mother nest consciousness, Immortal looked at the huge snake-like sanguisurincus and the huge sarcomas with a diameter of 50 meters. His eyes were filled with bloodthirsty killing intent. The next moment he controlled the sea dragon clone and opened its mouth. Roar! An earth-shattering roar came out. Under this roar, the seawater at the bottom of the sea actually produced circles of ripples that were visible to the naked eye. Sound wave attack. This sound wave quickly bombarded the sarcomas on the surface of the mother nest. Boom 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 boom. Under the sound wave attack, the sarcomas exploded one after another. A large amount of blood in the sarcomas spread out. The top of the trench was instantly filled with the smell of blood. And under this sound wave attack, the level 10 mutant beasts around the mother nest all felt dizzy. There were even a few mutant beasts whose tentacles were directly cut off. His mouth also split open with a huge bloody wound. Chapter 205. Seeing that the level 10 super mutant beasts were knocked out, the sea dragon clone immediately swam over. At this moment, cracking sounds came from its body. Its muscles were also wriggling quickly. A moment later, it turned into a 130-meter-long behemoth. It opened its mouth and pounced on the level 10 super mutant beasts. The super mutant beasts hurriedly tried to escape, but their heads hurt from the sonic attack just now and they completely lost their sense of direction. Also, Immortal released the natural pressure of a wild beast, suppressing many of the super mutant beasts so much that they didn't even dare to move. They could only let it devour them. In just half an hour, it devoured more than a dozen super mutant beasts here. Immortal clearly felt that the energy in the cells in his body had increased a lot. And this was only the outside of the nest. Inside the nest, the entire trench was a huge blood river that was 1,000 kilometers long. In this blood river, there were thousands of level 10 super mutant beasts. Immortal was overjoyed. If it devoured these level 10 super mutant beasts, the sea dragon clone should level up. Soon, he swayed his body and entered the blood river in the trench. As soon as he entered the blood river, countless thick sanguisurincus stretched out toward Immortal like blood-red pythons. Immortal's long way spread out. These sanguisurincus immediately crouched at the bottom of the sea, not daring to move at all. Then Immortal used the sonic attack again. These level 10 super mutant beasts once again felt a sharp pain in their heads. They rolled and struggled in pain. Immortal controlled the sea dragon clone to open its huge mouth and devour them. The energy in the sea dragon clone's body kept increasing crazily. But at this moment, Immortal discovered that the sanguisurincus around the nest, when they realized that they couldn't attack him, began to rapidly divide into thousands of tiny sanguisurincus. These sanguisurincus quickly interweaved above the trench. Then a small sarcoma continued to grow on the sanguisurincus. At first, the tumor was only the size of a fist. But soon, like a balloon, it grew bigger and bigger. In the end, it once again formed a giant sarcoma with a diameter of 50 meters. Then, the second, third, and fourth sarcomas were formed. It was obvious that the nest was repairing itself. Immortal took a deep breath. It seemed that the sonic attack was still inferior to his dragonwool meteorite. If the draconic meteor came crashing down, the broodmother wouldn't have a chance to recover. He immediately controlled the sea dragon clone and opened its mouth. Boom! A fiery red energy shot out. This fiery red energy looked like fire, but it also didn't seem to be fire. That was because it could burn at the bottom of the sea. The surrounding sanguisurincus instantly shriveled up upon contact with the energy. In the next moment they were all reduced to ashes. Then the energy was sprayed onto the sarcoma above. When the sarcomas encountered this energy, they were like plastic being burned by flames, constantly melting into small black blood balls. In the end it also disappeared. Then this energy sprayed towards the blood river below. The blood water in the entire blood pool seemed to evaporate in the face of this violent energy and kept decreasing. This time, the sarcoma above the broodmother never recovered. This was the first time the sea dragon clone had used energy. It was also the first time Immortal had seen an energy attack. Although the cells of Earth's creatures were extremely strong and could store energy, but they didn't have energy in their bodies. In other words, even if there was energy, it was all converted into the nutrients they needed to grow. Only by surpassing the restrictions of Earth and reaching the level of a desolate beast or a hunter could they release an energy attack. And the power of an energy attack was extremely fierce and domineering. Even Immortal wouldn't be able to withstand this energy attack. And ordinary desolate beasts, although they had energy in their bodies, couldn't not release it. This was because energy attacks consumed a lot of energy. The energy in their bodies would soon be exhausted. But at this moment, the sea dragon clone didn't have this concern. Because every time it released an energy attack, it would devour a few level 10 mutated beasts. The energy obtained from devouring level 10 mutated beasts could completely replenish the energy he used to release an energy attack. And while constantly releasing energy attacks, he found that the blood vessels and cells in the sea dragon clone's body had become much stronger after constant cleansing. It turned out that desolate beasts could quickly become stronger in this way. However, there were powerful desolate beasts and even stronger mutated desolate beasts everywhere on the flaming origin continent. So ordinary desolate beasts didn't dare to release energy attacks casually. Instead, they used energy attacks as a life-saving trump card. So although they knew that constantly releasing energy attacks could quickly become stronger, they didn't dare to release them casually. But at this moment, the sea dragon clone didn't have this concern. After all, it was now the strongest on Earth. Even if it didn't have a trace of energy in its body, no creature could be its match. Just like this, Mo controlled the sea dragon clone to continuously devour level 10 mutated beasts and release energy. It took 3 full days to destroy half of the broodmother nest in the East Sea Trench. At the same time, it also devoured half of the level 10 mutated beast here. And the cells and blood vessels in the sea dragon clone's body, after being constantly cleansed and strengthened by energy, finally reached their limits. Mo felt a faint pain of his muscles being torn apart in his body. He immediately switched his consciousness back to his main body. It was still the same saying, if there's trouble, let's enjoy it together. It was currently afternoon. Happy was knocking on the door. Mo got out of bed and opened the door. A ray of sunset fell into the room from outside the door. Outside the door, Happy's silhouette was outlined by the sunlight with a golden edge. Her originally black hair seemed to have turned golden in the setting sun. There was some concern in her beautiful eyes. Obviously, she saw that Mo had been staying in the room for the past few days and didn't go out much, so she was a little worried. Mo reached out to rub Happy's head and smiled. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm just tired from running around outside a few days ago, so I slept a little longer. When Happy saw that Mo was truly fine, he felt at ease. But she still took Mo's hand and pointed at the setting sun in the sky. Mo understood what she meant and said, "Okay, let's go out for a walk." Therefore, the two of them walked out of the corpse farm under the sunset. They took a walk in the base. Now in the base, everyone's face was filled with hope. In the first 30 years after the apocalypse, no one in the base had any hope on their faces. Because they couldn't see any hope in the first place. There were infected creatures everywhere, and the city wall might be breached at any time. Until now, Mo's strength had brought too many changes to the base. Hope finally appeared on people's faces, and some smiles also appeared. Chapter 206. 2/3 of the people in the base were already zombie hunters or psychokinesis. The remaining 1/3 were also full of hope. Mr. Mo had said that as long as they trained hard, everyone could become a zombie hunter or psychokinesis. When they were strong, there were no infected creatures outside the city walls. They could expand their range of activity. They reclaimed a large area of land outside the city walls to plant wheat, corn, and other crops. They even had the leisure to cultivate an orchard to plant apple trees. It was estimated that in half a year, the people in the base would solve the most basic food problem. They wouldn't have to eat porridge and steamed buns every meal. After 3 years, they could often eat meat and even fruit. And all of this was thanks to Mr. Mo. So when the people on the road saw Mo, they weren't as afraid as before. Some of the bolder ones even often greeted Mo. Walking with Mo like this, Happy's face often brimmed with a happy smile. Her smile was very infectious, and when the passers-by saw her smile, they all smiled knowingly. When Mo was with Happy, he felt that he was also much happier. When it was getting late, Mo and Happy returned to the corpse farm. Mo lay on the recliner on Grape Trellis 5, looked at the starry sky and slowly closed his eyes. Happy thought that Mo was asleep, so she brought a blanket and covered Mo. At this time, Mo's consciousness had already arrived in the body of the sea dragon clone in the East Sea Trench. At this time, the sea dragon clone's body length hadn't changed at all. But when Mo checked its attributes, he found that it had leveled up. Species, Sea Dragon. Level 4 Dire Beast. Ability, Evolution by Devouring Dragon Psychic Attack, Sound Wave Attack. Mo thought that after becoming a level 3 Dire Beast, it would take a long time for it to level up again. He didn't expect it to level up after devouring half of the mutant beasts in the mother nest. There were 27 other underwater mother nests in the world. If it devoured all of them, it would at least be level 7. Next, it took more than half a day for the sea dragon clone to devour all the mutant beasts in the East Sea Trench and destroy the entire nest. Only then did Mo sign in at the seabed broodmother's nest. System, sign in. The system replied instantly, just like any other time. Sign in successful. Sign in location, East Sea Trench Mother Nest. Sign in reward, Million Sanguisurincus, Acid Breath. Both of them were skills for the sea dragon's clone. It was clear that when Mo's consciousness was inside the sea dragon clone, most of his skills could be used by the sea dragon clone. But when his consciousness wasn't in the body of the sea dragon clone, the clone could only use a few skills such as Devouring Evolution and Dragon Will attacks. Now that he could sign in Myriad Sanguisurincus and Strong Acid Breath, it could be considered as giving the sea dragon avatar 2 more trump cards. After leaving the East Sea Trench that had been cleaned up, Mo swayed his body and wandered around the seabed. The sea dragon clone, a level 4 wild beast, was definitely an invincible existence at the bottom of the sea. Any mutated beast that encountered it could only escape. However, when these mutated beasts wanted to escape, the cells on the sea dragon clone's body would quickly squirm. It shot out a sanguisurincus. This sanguisurincus would instantly pierce into the mutated beast's body and grow barbs. This way, the mutated beast wouldn't even have time to escape. The sanguisurincus would drag the mutated beast over so that the sea dragon clone could enjoy it in peace. This was the magical effect of the million sanguisurincus. Not only could this sanguisurincus shoot out hundreds of them at the same time, but it could also penetrate the defense of any wild beast below level 4. As for this strong acid breath, it was even more powerful. The sea dragon clone could spit out strong acid. This kind of strong acid could only be withstood by the sea dragon clone's oral mucosa and acid bag mucosa. In front of this strong acid, anything else could only be quickly corroded. Even rocks were corroded to the point of being riddled with holes. Next, Mo Sure controlled the sea dragon clone and continued to go to other trenches. In each trench mother nest, there were at least 1,500 level 10 super mutated beasts. The sea dragon clone didn't let go of any level 10 super mutated beast. While devouring these super mutated beasts, the sea dragon clone's level was slowly increasing. At the same time, after more than 40 days of check-in, Mo Sure finally reached level 10 Great Hunter. After becoming a level 10 Great Hunter and taking the modification liquid for a few days, his body finally reached its limit. No matter how much modification liquid he took, it would be directly expelled from his body. It seemed that he would have to wait for the right opportunity to break through again. So for the next few days, Mo Sure focused on the sea dragon clone. After more than 40 days of devouring, the sea dragon clone had devoured half of the trench mother nests. It had now grown into a level 5 wild beast. The sea dragon clone, a level 5 wild beast, was quite terrifying in the sea. It could reach more than 50 meters per second. At this speed, devouring the remaining 14 trench mother nests would definitely be much faster than before. Mo Sure planned to go to the Bermuda Triangle to look for the underwater dragon ruins after devouring all the trench mother nests. At the same time on the flaming land. For tens of thousands of years, countless hunting grounds had been built on the entire continent. The entrance to each hunting ground was built on an island. On the first hunting island corresponding to the first hunting ground. In a huge factory in the corridor on the second floor. A middle-aged man in his 50s was holding the railing, looking at the zombies in the cages below howling and roaring at him. He was the owner of the first hunting ground. At this time, a middle-aged woman also in her 50s walked over. There was a hint of uneasiness between the woman's eyebrows. She said, "My son has been in the first hunting ground for more than a month and hasn't replied to any news. I tried to contact him with the interstellar communicator just now, but I couldn't reach him." The owner didn't turn around and continued to look at the zombies in the cages. He said, "Don't worry, as a level 10 Great Hunter, he is the strongest existence in the first hunting ground. Nothing in the first hunting ground can hurt him. Moreover, didn't you send a level 5 psychic to protect him?" The woman was slightly stunned, then laughed softly and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't ask for your permission and sent a level 5 psychic." The owner shook his head. "I've said it before, he's not young anymore. There are many things he should learn to solve by himself. It's just the first hunting ground. With his strength, it's more than enough to deal with the creatures there." A hint of worry appeared between the woman's eyebrows. "But why can't I reach him through the interstellar communicator? Why don't we send someone to check it out?" The owner thought for a moment and said, "I'll send a few people to check it out." The woman quickly nodded. "Yes, that's best." Chapter 207. On this day, Mo Sure controlled the sea dragon avatar and finished devouring another trench mother nest. His next goal was to kill 2 people. One was the deepest trench in the world, the Mariana Trench mother nest. The other was the Bermuda Devil Delta in the Atlantic Ocean. However, on this day, there were guests from outer space at the South Pole's blood-colored waterfall. South Pole, Death Valley, above the blood-colored waterfall. 10 balls of light slowly descended. These 10 blue-white balls of light were very blurry at first. Gradually they became more and more solid. In the end they condensed into 10 human forms. At this moment, Mo Sure's virus avatar saw the sudden appearance of these 10 people. He quickly reported to Mo Sure in his mind. One of those people saw Mo Sure's virus avatar and didn't care at all. The mechanical arm on his right hand instantly popped out. It grabbed at the virus avatar's neck. It was so fast that the virus avatar couldn't resist at all. The mechanical arm exerted force. Crack. The virus avatar's head was directly twisted off. However, the virus avatar was formed by the virus. Even if its head was cut off, it could still be formed again. Seeing this, those people were slightly surprised. Not human? A young man said as his telekinesis instantly spread out. As a level 5 psychic master, his telekinesis could kill all viruses and cells at the molecular level. When his telekinesis continuously attacked the virus and cells of the virus avatar could no longer heal. A moment later, the virus avatar turned into a pool of blood. The young man reached out and rubbed his nose. A mere level 5 great hunter. Boring. Then he said to the middle-aged man in the lead. The hunting ground master is making a mountain out of a molehill. In a broken place like the first hunting ground, any level 1 hunter can sweep through and crush everything. There are actually so many people here. A level 3 hunter, 8 level 1 hunters, plus a level 5 psychic master and me, a level 3 psychic master. Another young man also laughed. Why don't we all take a break and take it as a vacation? You can sweep through the first hunting ground alone. The level 3 psychic master youth rubbed his nose. Let's go then. A level 3 psychic master is an existence that can crush everything in this broken place. With the flaming origin continent, although a telekinesis grandmaster couldn't defeat a hunter, if they were at the same level, a telekinesis grandmaster could defeat a hunter. Therefore, a place where even a level 1 hunter could run rampant, he, a level 3 psychic master, could easily sweep all the way. The leader of the level 5 psychic masters smiled and said, "Nothing is absolute." The person who came with the hunting ground owner's son was a level 5 psychic master. We've lost contact with them, so we should be careful. The group of young men said one after another, "Got it, Uncle Hua." Uncle Hua, how could we dare to disobey your orders? Uncle Hua is right. But in their hearts they didn't think much of it. A rundown place like the first hunting ground was just child's play. In the past, they couldn't be bothered to come because it was beneath their dignity. What kind of danger could there be in such a lousy place? Uncle Hua nodded to a LV-1 hunter. The level 1 hunter immediately took off his backpack from his back. He took out a barrel-shaped object and patted it lightly. He stretched out his hand and lightly patted it twice. The barrel-shaped object made a few soft cracking sounds, and hundreds of walnut-sized boxes popped out. In each box there was a ball-shaped drone the size of an eyeball. After these drones took off, they quickly flew in all directions. The level 5 psychic master tightened his collar and said, "Let's leave this damned place of ice and snow first." Even though he was a level 5 psychic master, his body was no different from an ordinary person. Hearing this, everyone immediately activated their hover boots and flew towards the equator. At the same time, on the flaming origin continent, on the first hunting island. When the image of the first hunting ground was connected, the hunting ground owner's wife stayed in the monitoring room. The hunting ground owner occasionally came to take a look and patted his wife's shoulder lightly from time to time. "Don't worry, we've sent so many people this time. There won't be any problems." At the bottom of the earth, Emo sure knew the strength of these people from the virus clone's report. The strongest was a level 5 psychic master. Previously he had easily crushed the bald level 5 psychic master. As for the rest of the hunters, although he had not directly fought with them, from the memories of the long-haired young man and the bald middle-aged man, he knew that the strength of the hunters was much worse than that of a great psyche master of the same level. Therefore these people did not pose any threat to Emo sure at all. This made him heave a sigh of relief. He was originally worried that they would send out more psychic masters than the hunters. He did not expect that these small fries would come. In fact, in the Flaming Land, psychic masters were a minority. It was impossible for any random force to send out a psychic master. Thinking of this, Emo sure's consciousness returned to his body. Then, his figure flashed and disappeared from the base. The group of psychic masters and psychic masters from the Flaming Land flew to the sky above the chilly base. The people who were busy in the base saw this group of people suddenly appear and fly over on hoverboards that had never appeared on Earth. Everyone's first reaction was disbelief. Below their feet this doesn't look like the technology of Earth at all. Who are they? As they spoke, the psychic power of the level 3 psychic master spread out. It directly covered the entire base. Suddenly, the more than 70,000 people in the base were pressed to the ground as if they were suddenly carrying a huge rock on their backs. Everyone's faces were filled with horror. They did not know what they were experiencing at all. One by one, they raised their heads with difficulty and looked at the 10 people in the sky. When the 10 people in the sky looked at the group of people on the ground, their eyes and expressions were as if they were looking at a group of ants. The level 3 psychic master floated in mid-air. He stretched out his hands as if an immortal had descended to Earth. He began to shout to everyone in the base below. You group of natives, listen up. From today onwards, your god will descend to the world. These 2 sentences were spread out along with the spread of his psychic power. It was as if it could directly hit everyone's heart. It was as if the deafening sound of everyone's heart was emitted. The psychic power of a psychic master had the effect of intimidating people's hearts. Everyone in the base looked at these 10 people in horror. Are they really gods? Oh my god, gods really exist? I didn't believe it before, even if I was beaten to death, but today I believe it. Although they are not the image of gods in our imagination, I'm afraid that only gods can do this kind of thing. After the level 3 psychic master finished shouting, he lightly pressed on the multifunctional watch on his wrist. Soon, the 3-dimensional projections of the long-haired young man and the bald middle-aged man appeared in mid-air. He asked, "You natives, have you ever seen them?" Chapter 208. Have any of you seen these 2 people before? The voice of the level 3 hunter was sent to the bottom of everyone's hearts with his telekinesis. Everyone's hearts trembled. Under the effect of the telekinesis of a psychic grandmaster, most people had no doubt that these 10 people were gods. God descends? God descends. It's really God. Of course, this kind of effect was ineffective against those with high levels of psychokinesis or those with strong willpower, especially the few level 10 psychokinesis left behind by Immortal. They looked at the 10 people in the sky with solemn expressions. They're not gods, they're just mortals. A level 10 psychokinesis said solemnly. Seeing this, the level 3 psychic grandmaster snorted. You don't know what's good for you. As he spoke, his telekinesis instantly attacked the level 10 psychokinesis. Pop. The level 10 psychokinesis right hand exploded first. Then, pop 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 pop, the level 10 psychokinesis whole body exploded like firecrackers. In the end, his flesh and blood slowly dissipated in the air like smoke after firecrackers. When the surrounding people saw this, their expressions changed drastically. The level 3 psychic grandmaster pointed at the 3-dimensional figures in the air and sneered. I'll ask one last time. Have you seen them? Everyone shook their heads. No, I haven't. The level 3 psychic grandmaster shrugged helplessly. Since you bunch of aborigines can't provide any help to us, then there's no need for you to exist. As he spoke, his telekinesis suddenly spread out. As a level 3 psychic grandmaster, his telekinesis could easily wipe out all 80,000 people here. Among the 9 people who came with him, although some of them frowned slightly, they didn't stop him. After all, in their eyes, the humans in the first hunting ground were just a group of uncivilized barbarians. They were just a group of prey. If they killed them, then so be it. However, this time, when the level 3 psychic grandmaster's telekinesis spread out, it seemed to be wrapped by something and couldn't expand at all. Not only that, but his psychokinesis was also being forced back into his body. The level 3 psychic master's expression suddenly changed. There are other great psychic masters. He was a level 3 telekinesis grandmaster, but in front of the other party's telekinesis, he didn't even have the slightest resistance. Obviously, his opponent must be a great psychic master, and a psychic master whose psychic power far exceeded his own. Those hunters didn't feel anything strange. As for the level 5 telekinesis grandmaster, when he tried to spread out his telekinesis to help the level 3 telekinesis grandmaster withstand the pressure, he was shocked to find that his telekinesis was unable to spread out. To be able to suppress his telekinesis to the point where it couldn't spread out, the other party was at least a level 6 telekinesis grandmaster. How could this be? How could there be a level 6 psychic in the first hunting ground? Could it be that a level 6 psychic from the Flaming Dawn continent had come to the first hunting ground? Such a thing had happened on the Flaming Dawn continent before. Some people, for some reasons, sneaked into some hunting grounds. In those hunting grounds he was the strongest king. Therefore he would continue to live in that hunting ground. For example, a criminal who sneaked into a hunting ground. As each hunting ground was extremely large, as long as he didn't actively expose himself, almost no one would discover that he had sneaked into this hunting ground. Thinking of this, the level 5 telekinesis grandmaster hurriedly said, "We are all from the Flaming Dawn continent. We have no enmity with you, so I hope you." Boom! Before he could finish his sentence, the level 5 telekinesis grandmaster exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Even the level 3 telekinesis grandmaster beside him exploded into a cloud of blood mist. The people on the ground, who were still in a state of shock, had a drastic change in expression when they saw this scene. God has fallen. How is this possible? How can a god fall? Is the end of the world really coming? Naturally, there was a sober person who shouted, They aren't gods at all. They are just a bunch of people who are pretending to be gods. At the same time, the remaining 8 people in the sky were all horrified. Among the 10 of them, the 2 strongest people were instantly killed just like that. Then would the remaining 8 of them be any better? Just as they were panicking, a figure came from afar and slowly flew over. As he flew over, all the drones within a radius of 100 kilometers exploded. Immosure's cold gaze swept over these people, his voice icy cold. I'll give you a chance. One-on-one or a group fight. The 8 people looked at each other. In the end, it was still the level 3 hunter who smiled awkwardly. He replied, "You must be joking. How would we dare to attack you? We are only here to look for someone." Boom 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 boom. Before he could finish his sentence, he felt a mountain-like pressure fall from the sky. His body involuntarily fell to the ground. He crashed through the roof of a building and continued to crash through more than 10 floors. In the end, he crashed into the foundation of the building. The physical strength of a hunter was extremely strong. With Immosure's level 3 dragon will, it was still not possible for him to tear their bodies apart. But in this way, the level 3 hunter crashed through more than 10 floors, which was even more shocking. Immosure continued to look at the remaining 7 people. His voice was still cold. "I'll give you a chance. One-on-one or a group fight." After he finished speaking, he saw that these people were all terrified. He shook his head helplessly. "Okay, I promise not to use telekinesis." The remaining 7 were all level 1 hunters. At this time, when they heard Immosure say that he would not use telekinesis, they were all shocked. Could it be that this person had both telekinesis and a hunter? Even on the Flaming Dawn continent, people who cultivated both telekinesis and hunters were rare. And as long as they grew up, each of them would be an overlord. If it was in the past, they would not have dared to attack such an existence. But today this person forced them to attack. And he promised not to use telekinesis. They looked at each other. In the end, a level 1 hunter said, "Group fight." As he spoke, he tore open his sleeve and revealed the right mechanical arm. The entire mechanical arm was metallic black, and under the sunlight, it emitted a black luster. The next moment, the muscles on his right shoulder wriggled and started to grow. Soon, the muscles wrapped around the entire mechanical arm. It formed a 1-foot wide, 2-meter long giant sword. The next moment, the body of the giant sword turned fiery red. Because of the high temperature, the air around the giant sword seemed to be distorted. When the people on the ground saw this scene, they all felt that their worldview was shattered. What the hell was this? The mechanical arm could stretch freely. This was no longer a technology that could be found on Earth. Now, it was heating up a genetic weapon? Was this a dream? Chapter 209. In the entire Chile base, almost everyone's worldview was shattered. It had been more than 30 years since the apocalypse. In these 30 years, most of Earth's technology had been stagnant. The only improvement was in the research of viruses. However, what appeared in front of them now was a pair of flying shoes and a mechanical arm. This was far beyond their knowledge. At this moment, the hunters also realized that if they did not make a move today, they might not be able to escape. Although this guy's telekinesis was strong, he was arrogant enough to promise not to use it. This was no different from crippling one of his arms. If the 7 of them worked together, they might have a chance. Thinking of this, their right arms all condensed their genetic weapons. Everyone's genetic weapons were also heated to a fiery red color. The 7 of them formed a circle in the air, surrounding Immosure. In the next moment, the 7 genetic weapons attacked Immosure at almost the same time. 7 weapons: sabers, swords, spears, and whips. One of them even had a red-hot mace. Seeing this, Immosure's eyes also showed some excitement. The reason why he did not use his dragon will to kill these people directly. It was because he wanted to see the genetic weapons of these people from the Flaming Land and the way they fought. Although he already had some understanding of the Flaming Land from other people's memories, it was not enough to understand from other people's memories. This was especially true for things like fighting styles, which required him to personally experience actual combat in order to have a personal understanding of it. At the same time, Immosure also wanted to see how his combat strength was without using his dragon will. Of course, as for the promise not to use telekinesis, that was just an excuse Immosure used to force them to make a move. When it came to a life-and-death situation, who would care about promises? Moreover, he did not use telekinesis to begin with, but dragon will. At this moment, the genetic weapons of these people had completely enveloped an area of 1 kilometer around him. The high temperature of the genetic weapons made Immosure understand that even his body could not withstand the attacks of these people's genetic weapons. Although he had the invincible Vajra body, the Titan dragon breastplate, and the dragon blood armor, these 3 layers of defense. But that was only invincible on Earth. Now that he encountered alien genetic weapons, he did not dare to casually take them head-on. His figure moved as he activated Dragon Shadow Step. In the blink of an eye, a giant dragon shadow was left behind. Then he broke away from the encirclement. Those hunters were all stunned. What kind of freaking movement technique was that? They didn't even see it clearly, but they escaped the encirclement in an instant? Furthermore, there was even a giant dragon's shadow. What the hell was this? At this moment, in the building that had been smashed through, the level 3 hunter finally came to his senses. However, under the suppression of Immoshur's draconic will, he was firmly suppressed there, unable to move at all. When the 7 hunters saw that Immoshur had escaped from the encirclement, they immediately chased after Immoshur. Immoshur made use of his speed and instantly appeared beside a long spear genetic warrior. He also summoned the huge axe genetic weapon that he had not used for a long time. It hacked down towards the head of the hunter. The hunter hurriedly raised his gun. Boom. In the end, he managed to block Immoshur's giant axe. However, under Immoshur's immense strength, he was directly smashed to the ground. A human-shaped crater was formed on the ground. The ground around the crater also started to crack inch by inch. When the other hunters saw this, they were all shocked. What great strength! They could clearly feel that this person's level was 1 level lower than theirs. He had not even reached the level of a hunter. However, this strength was actually able to crush a level 1 hunter. What kind of freak was this? One had to know that on the Flaming Origin continent, the difference between a level 10 great hunter and a level 1 hunter was huge. A level 1 hunter could easily crush hundreds of level 10 great hunters. In terms of strength, they would be completely crushed. However, this level 10 great hunter was now crushing a level 1 hunter. Was there still any justice in this world? How would they know that Immoshur had consumed so much Titan Dragon bloodline modification fluid? His body had already undergone a fundamental change. Although he had not become a true giant dragon's body, he was still far from being comparable to an ordinary hunter. Therefore, it was absolutely easy for him to challenge someone of a higher level and crush his opponent in terms of strength. Next, Immoshur used the Dragon Shadow Step to constantly move between the 6 of them. From time to time, he would swing his axe as if it had the power to destroy the world. Even if these people were able to react in time and block his giant axe, they were basically sent flying hundreds of meters away by his abnormal strength. The more these people fought, the more shocked they became. Previously, they thought that this guy was just a level 10 great hunter and that they could easily defeat him without using their telekinesis. However, they never thought that this guy would not only not be at a disadvantage but also completely suppress the 7 of them by himself. He could still crush someone of a higher level than him. What kind of freak was this? At this time, Immoshur was getting braver and braver as he fought. He thought to himself, still not using your trump card? He knew that all the hunters had an absolute trump card. This trump card was extremely powerful, and they would not use it unless they had no other choice. Since these guys still had not taken out their trump cards, he could only add fuel to the fire. Thinking of this, Immoshur used the Dragon Shadow Step and instantly appeared behind a hunter. The giant axe in his hand fiercely chopped down toward the hunter's head. The speed of this attack was extremely fast and sudden. That guy did not even have time to react. He was split into 2 halves by the giant axe. Like 2 slices of pork, he flew far away. These 2 slices of pork fell directly into the base below. When everyone saw this, they all screamed and dodged. Some of the cowards were scared shitless. At this time, there were only 5 hunters left in the sky. They saw that this level 10 great hunter was actually so powerful. All of them were shocked. They looked at each other and then gathered in the same direction. The next moment, the 5 of them attacked Immoshur together. When they were 2 to 5 meters away from Immoshur, their genetic weapons suddenly shone brightly, emitting a dazzling white light. At the same time, their genetic weapons also released a red and white laser-like energy. This energy came extremely quickly. Swish, swish, swish. Immoshur was already prepared. With a leap of the Dragon Shadow Step, he was already behind the 5 of them. At the same time, the energy released by the genetic weapons of these 6 people continued to extend a few hundred meters forward, sweeping toward the few buildings in front of them. Those buildings were directly broken in half by the force of the sweep. With a rumble, they collapsed. This was the trump card of a hunter. Every hunter had a certain amount of energy stored in their cells. This energy could allow them to be more powerful when attacking. When running, it could increase their speed. However, the most important use of this energy was to release it through genetic weapons in the form of laser-like energy. Its speed was extremely fast and its destructive power was extremely strong. When the energy of a level 1 hunter was released through genetic weapons, even a level 5 hunter would not dare to take it head-on.